open for to panelists.
Come on, Craig. Where's our background music? I request some dance hall.
He said he's only giving art. That's it.
All right, good people. So I'll wait from the queue from my boss, Nia, and I see that we have the good-looking panel is all here. So I think we're ready to roll. Nia, are we ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Lending Ecosystem Real Talk Roundtable. First and foremost, there's some just information we want to share with regard to the interpretation. So Nia, if you could bring up the next slide. For those who need language interpretation, we have simultaneous French English language interpretation available throughout today, and this is the information how to find it. So in the meeting webinar controls, you'll find interpretation. You'll be able to click the language you'd like to hear, and then you will be able to navigate throughout. Nia, please, the agenda. So this is a snapshot of the agenda we will be going through today. Very exciting for this discussion. Really pleased to have the exciting and the amazing group of individuals who are here as part of Real Talk to have a real in-depth discussion around the Black entrepreneur ecosystem, including FACE, represented by Tiffany Callender, who's going to give an update with regard to their first year activity report, which is an incredible data set of Black entrepreneurs. And we're really glad that Tiffany will be sharing those insights, and we'll be taking some questions there. Afro-Caribbean Business Network will be with Ryan Knight. We'll be sharing highlights from the Black labor market assessment report, which has some tremendous insights, and again will lead to conversation. We're really pleased to have Victor Beausoleil, CEO of Intuit Consulting, and former executive director of SETC here to be moderating this. And then we will have insights we will share on our own Black Opportunity Fund micro lending program, which we launched just yesterday, and our partner, Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, with Doug Minter here, will talk about some of the capacity building programs that we are that they are doing through their Elevate program and the programs we're doing in partnership, followed by a Q&A session. And we're really grateful that the registrants who have signed up for this have sent in questions for us, which we have compiled and pulled together to answer. Before I go any further, I would like to start by acknowledging and honoring the land that we are on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. I'm joining you today from the town of Pickering, as we know it today, which resides on land within the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation and the Williams Treaties signatories of Mississauga and Chippewa nations. These treaties and other covenants were agreements to peaceably share and care for the land and its resources, and we are mindful of broken covenants and the breach of trust rooted in the acquisition of the land noted within these treaties, which has resulted in ongoing systemic injustices that impact First Nations people until today. And as more bodies are recovered at residential schools across Canada, I invite you to join with us in standing in solidarity with all Indigenous communities and to remain individually and collectively committed to the truth and reconciliation work that needs to be continued, including the specific calls to action in the report of the Commission, in honoring and respecting all the generations of people who have been stewards of this land for thousands of years, and to listening to the experiences and amplifying the voices of Indigenous people. And we are all treaty people. Many of us has come here as settlers, as immigrants in this generation or generations past. And I would also like to acknowledge those of us who came here forcibly, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. And I acknowledge the shared history of our two peoples of bondage on these lands and the resulting generational trauma. Therefore, I also honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. I want to talk about the reason and the rationale for bringing this group of amazing people together. So Black Opportunity Fund has always had these very open and transparent roundtables since our inception. It's one of the things that we're very proud that we do, where myself, members of our leadership team, the board, are on here as all the way along on a regular basis, answering questions, talking to our customers, the community, and getting insights from what the community's needs are. And in everything that we do in collaboration. So I'm very pleased to have here Ryan Knight with Afro-Caribbean Business Network, who is a partner with us on our Black Business Lending Program, who we have launched yesterday. Al Ramsey from TD Bank, and TD, of course, is a significant partner of Black Opportunity Fund. The investment TD made with us is the largest investment by a Canadian bank in the history of Canada in a Black-led community organization, and they are the backbone of our lending program. Tiffany Callender from FACE, and we're like running into Tiffany all the time. If a week goes by and I haven't connected with Tiffany, I'm wondering if I'm in the right place. Doug Minter from Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, who is a partner with us and has developed our capacity building programs that we're offering to support Black entrepreneurs. We have Susan Henry from Alterna, who has been an amazing guiding light in terms of micro lending for Black entrepreneurs, and certainly has been a helpful resource for us in developing out our program as well. Kevon Edwards from CIBC, who is again a very strong partner of us through a donation of $2 million from CIBC. We provide financial support, non-repayable funds to Black businesses who are going through the programs we're doing with Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. Victor Beausoleil, who is the moderator for the program. So thank you all. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be in your space. And again, how this evolved is through conversations we had, just recognizing that the narrative around the Black entrepreneur ecosystem is often directed by the media. And it does not allow for a fulsome conversation with community with regard to what is the reality of the Black entrepreneur ecosystem, what are the needs of the Black entrepreneur ecosystem with regard to lending, and what are the barriers and challenges they face, and what are the supports that are available. So I'm really pleased to have the group of individuals and organizations who have agreed to join us in this forum and answer questions from the community and talk about what the work that we are doing to dismantle the impacts of systemic anti-Black racism. So the first thing I do want to do, again, just invite Tiffany Callender from FACE to come up to the microphone, come up to the stage, and present the insights with regard to their first year report on their Black lending program. So Tiffany, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Craig. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm very glad to join this panel and this discussion with the community. So thank you, Black Opportunity Fund, for inviting me to represent FACE. As mentioned, my name is Tiffany Callender, and I am the co-founder and CEO of the Federation of African Canadian Economics. And I'm glad today to come and share a little bit of insight on our program, on what we've done in our first year of programming, serving Black entrepreneurs coast to coast. And to really add to this element of real talk, I really believe that as a community and with the panel as we go along through the agenda, is that we're all here to serve. And the idea is that we have a lot of needs in our community in terms of economic development and growth. And the more programs that we have that can help to assist entrepreneurs in the different position or place that they are in their entrepreneurial journey, the better. So I think that this discussion is important, it's fulsome and it's wholesome. And FACE is very glad to be here to be able to share how we're contributing to this larger ecosystem to support Black entrepreneurship. I'm going to request control from our host so that I can start off our presentation. And okay, great. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go to our opening part of our presentation, which I thought it would be best to be able to present to you a little bit about FACE, but more than that, the story from the perspective of the entrepreneurs that we've assisted. So I'm gonna see if I have control of this. I don't think I do. Cindy Ann, I know you've given me control, but am I able to share slide or go over from slide to slide? No? Okay, as we deal with the technical elements of, oh, there we go, perfect. If you could go ahead and press play and make sure that the sound is shared with the complete audio, that'd be great. We can't hear it, so you have to make sure that it shares with the audience.
Pardon the minor technical glitches with technology, as we've all grown to learn how to stick handle around these.
In the meantime, Greg, thank you. What I'll do is I will start the narrative, and then we will be able to get in the video as soon as Cindy Ann gives me the signal that the sound and audio will be shared for everybody. So to go back to go forward, which I think is important to contextualize who FACE is in the ecosystem, the Federation of African Canadian Economics was a program that was started with 5 different community-based organizations who served entrepreneurs in different regions of the country. When we started our project to be able to serve Black entrepreneurs in 2020 during the pandemic, we were looking at the emergency services that were being presented by the Government of Canada, namely the Canadian Emergency Bank Account. And by looking at the criteria that was presented in order for entrepreneurs to benefit from that offer, to support them during what we at that time did not know would be the breadth of COVID-19. We knew inherently and instinctively by the service that we had done in our respective organizations across the country that a lot of the Black-owned businesses that we know and work with would not be able to meet the criteria to be able to benefit from CEBA. So the idea there was to feed this information back to government through our members of parliament, and to say that we believe that, one, there needs to be a space where Black entrepreneurs are able to have access to capital and also developmental support or capacity building to weather the storm of COVID. But the issue regarding access to capital and resources has been longstanding within the Black community of Canada. The idea of accessing business funding, business loans has been challenging. There was a report that was also disseminated a few weeks before the actual launch of our program that stated that Black entrepreneurs, when they were polled, said that they would not know where, 76% would not know where to go and get $10,000 to save their business. They did not feel as though they had good relationships with financial institutions, and they felt comfortable working with their own community in terms of support. So this is key information that kind of guided essentially what we knew, not only anecdotally, but by shared experience, that Black entrepreneurs required support in accessing capital and non-financial services that was led and guided and designed to permit access by its own community. And this is foundationally the reason for the creation of our national nonprofit called the Federation of African Canadian Economics, which launched May 31st of 2021. Are we okay with the sound? Because I think that the video would help, or if not, we're gonna keep rolling because no, we don't hear it. Okay, no worries. Let's go to the next slide and I'll be able to tell you guys what was in the video. It was going to be impactful though, guys, I promise. But ultimately, in our first year of servicing the community, there was a lot of key elements that occurred that's important to note as we have this real talk discussion. The first thing is that when opening the doors to this program, FACE, who is a part of the Black Entrepreneurship Program, which is supported by the federal government, is in charge of the lending aspect of the program. So we manage a $160 million loan fund that allows for access to capital between $10,000 to $250,000. Our pilot micro lending program, which had launched as a part of this larger program, is respectively happening in Ontario and in Vancouver with our partners Alterna Savings and Van City. This micro lending program is the portion where we lend from $10,000 to $25,000. Between $25,000 and $100,000, FACE, who was given a $30 million contribution by the federal government, offers loans to that amount. And our other partner, the BDC, covers loans from $100,000 to $250,000. Ultimately, for the Black Entrepreneurship Loan Fund, the entry point is FACE. And we are the ones who have created a risk model, who do all of the intake, assessment, underwriting, and approval of the loans presented by Black entrepreneurs from all over the country. Our financial partners act as supports for us in terms of doing the AML, which is the anti-money laundering, and the KYC, know your client background checks, and also the disbursement of funds through the capital that they've contributed to the program. So this undertaking started in May of 2021, and we began to disperse loans in July of 2021. So ultimately, if we look at the performance results of our organization and our full activity report or annual report for our first year, 2021 to 2022, April 1st to March 31st, will be available soon on our website. I'd like to give you the key performance results for our program up to this point. So if we looked at FACE in terms of numbers, as I mentioned before, so there's $160 million of funding available for micro and macro loans on our platform at facecoalition.com, where all applications are deposited or submitted for review. So you have to create a FACE account to then be able to answer the mandatory questions that are required for a loan application and the actual corporate documents or the eligibility documents in order for your application to be considered complete and able to move to stages of review. And these documents are business plans, financial statements, your tax returns or your tax documents, your actual PSOA, so personal statement of affairs, which you provide on the platform, and additional information like ID and verification of the location of your actual company. But those come down the line. But the mandatory documents are those that were previously mentioned. So when you start a FACE account, this is what we mean when we talk about registered Black-owned businesses on the FACE platform. So by March 31st, 2022, we had 27,131 accounts open and live on our platform. Now, this means that these are people who are at different stages of preparing application. Now, within that, by March 31st, 2022, we had 2,000 complete applications submitted from across the country. That means folks who answered all the mandatory questions and submitted all of the necessary corporate documents to move through the stages of review. We could go to the next one, or I don't know if I can control it. I don't control it. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So then if we look at, again, the numbers in terms of our performance, in our first year, we were able to approve 181 companies to a value of $15.2 million. So approved meaning that they had gone through the entire review process at FACE, which includes the underwriting by our loan officers that are representative of different regions, to go to our adjudication committee, which is made up of members of the community who are professionals, whether bankers, they are lawyers, accountants, or business owners, who are an impartial group of people who adjudicate or review and recommend approval or deferral or decline of all applications reviewed at FACE. And then they are passed on to our actual financial partners. So we are glad to have those volunteers who give us their time to be able to support us in this process of review. In that time as well, out of those 181 companies who were approved, 118 were dispersed. And the simple reason for the I guess you would say the delta in that number is that once an application is approved from FACE and sent over to our financial partners to proceed through the AML and KYC process, there could be other information that's required or a different level of due diligence depending on the type of business. So to be fair, we actually did our cutoff in terms of our count for March 31st, but the remainder of those applications continued, but were only dispersed after the year end. So we did not count it in our results for year one in terms of disbursements. The chart there below is very interesting as well because we've captured through our platform and through the work that we are doing with our partners and through our reporting, the actual approval and dispersed rate, which is important for us because it shows that FACE was on an upward trend in its only 8 months of processing loans through this program. Next slide, please, Carol or Cindy Ann.
Tiffany, I believe you have control now, by the way.
Do I? I keep pressing it and it's not happening, but okay. I'm not sure what's happening there. Okay, perfect. I do. Thank you so much. So, okay. So also important to note that, and this is also a part of the real talk that I hope we're going to have today. Data is king in any sector that you're in the world in which we live. And when we built the custom-made platform to launch our program, her name is Bobby, Black-owned business interface. This is the platform which receives and does all intake of all of the applications for the Black Entrepreneurship Loan Fund. We knew it was important at that point to also collect data about Black entrepreneurs across the country. I'll tell you anecdotally why, but obviously other than my previous statement that data is king, it's very simple. When we began our conversations with government around why we needed to create a target-specific Black entrepreneurship program to service Black entrepreneurs across the country, one of the questions that came to us was how many Black businesses are there in Canada? And my answer was, well, you're the government of Canada, so you technically should be able to guide us through that. But I think we looked at that as an opportunity to be able to map and to identify who is Black Business Canada and where are they? But when you talk about the who, there's a very important element to that, which is our intersectionality. We have to consider that as Black entrepreneurs, with now so many programs that are supported through the public and private sector, there's also other resources that are available to entrepreneurs that our community perhaps is not benefiting from, but do qualify based on their intersectionality. So when we look at the demographics from the first year of lending at FACE, we have 32% of the loan applicants who successfully received the loan are women. For youth, 11%, and we categorize youth as 18 to 29. For newcomers, immigrants, meaning people who were born outside of Canada and now live here, it's 81%. And for the LGBTQ plus community, it is 9% of the loan recipients who successfully received the loan were from that community. I think this is phenomenal in terms of data that we can have, because there was a time when I was having this conversation with key partners in government and we did not know that. So we hope to use and leverage that data to be able to share with partners and to also create relationships with other ecosystem partners that will respond to additional support needed for our intersectional Black entrepreneurship community. In terms of business type, we have 88 of those were incorporations. Sole proprietorships came in at 27 and 3 in terms of partnerships. And I think this is also valuable because, again, what does it mean in terms of who is Black Business Canada and how they structure and register their businesses? And should we be able to give additional supports through programming offered by ecosystem partners? You guys are going to hear from Ryan shortly in that regard. Loans by business size, which I think is very, very important to look at and denote. And I want to be clear that I've aligned the reporting of this with the international labor market standard of what is a business size. Because as we work together across this ecosystem to paint the picture of what is required in terms of strengthening us and in terms of economics and a Black community, we have to align ourselves. And when you hear from Ryan's report or the phenomenal work that he's done with Duns, Pierre, and Barnett's firm in terms of the labor market study or the kind of condensed labor market study in Southern Ontario, it's important that we align ourselves in how we identify Black businesses. So for the businesses that we financed in the last year, which we have 84 of them are considered by the ILO as nano businesses, meaning they have 1 to 4 employees, whereas 34 of those companies are considered micro businesses, meaning they have 5 to 49 employees. Of course, you could use a different rate of standard that is common to Canada, but as we unfold our ecosystem strategies to be able to support Black businesses and position ourselves in terms of our country, but also the world, this will make a little bit more sense in terms of why we've chosen that for our metrics or the way in which we categorize businesses at FACE. Moving on to by region. So we've dispersed all over this country, which is great for a first year in terms of approvals and in terms of disbursements. It was very interesting to find out not only that we have momentum across different provinces, but that of course we have the biggest number of loans and also approvals that have happened in Ontario, Quebec, and Alberta respectively. And we hope to continue to work with ecosystem partners around capacity building and supporting entrepreneurs on their journey of being finance ready in different regions, because each of those regions would likely need a tailored approach. And this is why we partnered with certain organizations to do just that. Not to bore you too much in terms of the loans by sector, and the font is very small here, but the way that we've used our platform or are able to generate through our first year is the sectors in which we've been able to finance. So we've been able to class and tag all of our loans based on the NAICS, which is the North American Index Systems and Codes, to be able to ensure that we know what sectors of business we're in. Understanding where we have a concentration in terms of businesses from our community is important, because it'll also give us insight in the future to where we might want to put development to ensure that we are helping businesses in those sectors as well. The summary of this ultimately leads to understanding that for our first year, the 3 biggest sectors where we saw loans being dispersed were in retail, trade, as well as professional, scientific, and technical services, and lastly, accommodations and food services. So we want to use this obviously as a baseline as we progress through this program to see and ensure that we are tracking what businesses and in what sectors, in what regions, and to what amount we are able to support these companies. But most importantly, what does the investment from FACE mean in terms of actually growing the economy here in Canada? Trying to hit my slide here. Oh, there we go. Oh, no, went too far. Sorry, Ryan, you got to wait. Last but not least, we have our partnerships at FACE, which we value very much. So going back to the Black Entrepreneurship Program, which is a federal government program where it financed 3 pillars. The first being FACE at the actual financing as a financing arm of the BEP under the Black Entrepreneurship Loan Fund. The second arm, which is the ecosystems, which are Black service organizations who've been funded across the country to help with capacity building. And lastly, the Black Knowledge Hub, which is the arm or in terms of research, qualitative and quantitative research regarding the program. So being a part of this program has been a very interesting and dynamic time, because we are starting to see a commitment to Black business organizations to be able to have the resources to support Black businesses across the country. However, the program rolled out in different phases, FACE being the first, and our ecosystem organizations rolled out shortly thereafter. But we are working together now to ensure that we create a healthy, robust pipeline to ensure that Black entrepreneurs on their way to being finance ready are supported through these organizations, and then are able to apply to FACE by meeting all criterias and being able to get support to whether it be working capital or whatever the use of funds is going to be for the loan request. I want to take the time to be able to highlight, as I mentioned before, the Government of Canada, who, as I mentioned, invested directly into the loan fund, into the operations and infrastructure that was needed to build FACE. I want to flag my last real talk point for my presentation. The reality of it is, my dear community, is that we have built a national Black organization that is now dispersing business loans to Black entrepreneurs across the country in a very short period of time. The organization and all the infrastructure to open its doors on May 31st was months. It takes time, ladies and gentlemen, to be able to build infrastructure. And what I like to say is build an institution with a strong foundation. So we want to thank the Government of Canada for investing in that infrastructure. However, we want to be sure to be able to continue to grow our partnership. I think I'm getting the hook, like when you're at the Apollo. So I'm speed up. The BDC being our financial partner, as mentioned before, who also helps in terms of servicing our loans and our AML KYC process. And Alterna and Van City, you will hear from Susan Henry later on today, who has been a great partner and ally to these actual, this program. And we have aligned ourselves with credit unions because they have in their structure and in the nature in which they are built, a close connection to community. And we value and appreciate that. I see that there are questions popping up at the bottom of the panel. So if you could, Craig, let me know if I'm answering questions now or if
I think following, we're gonna let Ryan come up and do his presentation, so you guys are back to back, and then Victor will jump in and facilitate some of the Q&A from the chat. And certainly I'm seeing questions in there. What happens to those who are declined and so on? Those are questions we will actually be addressing throughout the day in terms of looking at some of the capacity building support that we have and some of the partnerships around the table. I think it's really important for people to understand that we are all working together, because that is the key thing. We are not working in isolation. We have taken significant steps to find out who's in what lane and what lanes have no traffic, so that we can ensure that we're redirecting traffic there, so that there's support all the way around, and being able to do that together. That's the only way we're gonna solve this. We're in a unique point in time where I always say, you know, Black is in season right now, but seasons change, and we understand that, and we have to be serious about it, and we have to put grain aside for when there is less plenty, and we also need to make sure that we're in a position, as you've just demonstrated, as Ryan's going to demonstrate, that we are really doing an assessment. We are measuring, we're gathering data so we can understand together what are the objectives we're trying to achieve. So at the end of this, we can measure, did we have community impact? I want to turn over to you, Ryan, to take it from there. And then following that, Victor, I will leave it to you to come in and facilitate a Q&A before myself and Doug come in and you take it from there. Okay, Ryan, over to you.
All right, solid. Are you seeing my screen okay? Wonderful. And again, I'm not going to go too deep into who the Afro-Caribbean, can you hear me? You good? Okay. I'm not going to go too deep into who the Afro-Caribbean Business Network is. I just want to say quick, we are celebrating our 5-year anniversary this December, so the invites are going to be coming out. But really, hold on, I want to spend most of the time talking about the information that we've been able to find. And if you don't know who I am, I do consider myself a serial entrepreneur, but I do spend time as the co-executive director of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. And we were designed to really fill a gap that I was seeing as an entrepreneur, where when I was ready to scale, there weren't a lot of Black-focused business organizations to turn to. So now, for ourselves over these past 5 years, we've been able to engage with over 5,000 entrepreneurs and realize that they needed more than just networking and info sessions, but true capacity building. And to get that capacity building, we were able to partner now with over 40 Black-focused business organizations across Canada. And internally, we've been able to create a microloan program in partnership with Alterna Savings, investment readiness accelerator in partnership with the federal government and the FedDev Ontario. And we even started a VR metaverse called Ubuntu to support the mental health of our Black entrepreneurs. But really today, I wanted to touch on this Black labor market assessment that we were able to do thanks to the great research from Dunn, Pierre, and Barnett and Associates. And we surveyed about 1,600 Black entrepreneurs within Southern Ontario. So overall, we did see that there's about 27,000 plus registered businesses across Canada, but that doesn't even show the solopreneurs, where there's over 100,000 businesses where, you know, people, mom, pop shops, solopreneurs, people just doing a thing on Instagram that exists, but the research is very specific to those that have employees. And so from this information, we were able to see that 86% of our entrepreneurs that we surveyed are below 5 employees, similar to what Tiffany was saying, and understanding that that classifies them as a nano business. And then those 5 to 9 and up to 49, the other chunk was micro businesses, and only a few were over 100. Actually, only 4 would be considered a small business by actually 10, so it's 50 plus. So only 10 out of 1,600 would be considered an actual small business. So when we look at who they're employing, it's really important to understand that Black businesses are struggling to find talent. So this caused us to pause and really understand, when we're in these focus groups, we're talking to Black and non-Black unemployed people saying that they don't want to work for Black firms. And this really sparked a lot of conversation to say, what is it that's stopping people, or what's the stereotype of Black entrepreneurs? And we realized that beyond just the one-on-one programs, beyond just creating a business plan, when we're working with entrepreneurs, we actually have to change that stereotype to get them out of a nano business and into that small business realm, because right now, people do not aspire to work for Black businesses. And that is a big problem that really has a lot of intersectionality, as how do we create or correct the stereotype to make it aspirational to work for Black businesses. When you go into MBA classes and you ask, where do these budding students want to work? And they mention McKinsey and KPMG and Deloitte. How do we add Black firms into those conversations? And that's really falling on now the ecosystem and organizations like myself, where we're working with entrepreneurs to really build them up and make them aspirational to work for. So as Tiffany was showing, and hopefully this will shed some light, we did find that Black businesses dominant in 26 economic industries, but there's 42. So it's very concerning to see that we're actually not in half of the industries that exist. And it does show here, but actually, if I go to the next slide, it shows where we're focused. So 25% of businesses are in professional services, legal, accounting, and consulting. 19% are in arts and entertainment. About 9% are in finance, and another 9% are in computer and IT. But this, just before I go to the next slide, it brings up an interesting question around, are we structuring our businesses to grow? If you're in professional services, typically you're the talent. So now you can really only grow so far based on your bandwidth. So now you're high risk to the banks. You're not investable from VCs and angel investors. So from the beginning, we have made ourselves invisible to capital. And this is where it's really important for us to build the ecosystem as strong as possible, understand where are we leading our businesses and are we leading them on the right track to become visible to capital. And then we don't have to create carve-outs for the Black community. They could actually qualify for any of the capital that's out there. And just to wrap up, I talk a lot about ecosystem building. We have to understand who's doing the work. We have to understand who's funding the work. We have to build a stronger communication network within the ecosystem so that organizations are actually creating, exactly like what we're doing today, ways to communicate and share knowledge. But that ecosystem development, who's in charge of regulating that ecosystem, and how we're going to make sure that the ecosystem is stable. I always talk about my analogy of the human body. We're the think tanks, research institute. We see that we have the Black Knowledge Hub. We're working from something called the Black Empowerment Manifesto. The blood, how is money flowing through the ecosystem? Are we generating our own income as organizations? We're very reliant on the government, and how much more support could we get from corporations? That nervous system, communication with internal and of course external, but the hands that we're all used to, us doing the work. So again, if you want to learn more about the Black Empowerment Manifesto, please join our study groups that we do on Tuesday evenings. But just to give you a final stat, the companies that we surveyed need support. So if you are a graphic designer, 37% of the 1,600 need your work. If you're in IT, if you're in accounting, if you can help people finish financial applications and help them get funding, 61% of them need your help. So when we're getting money, and for the entrepreneurs that are getting these loans, how we cycle it amongst our Black businesses and in our own ecosystem and keep the dollar circulating is really important. Because if we watch the flow of money, typically it goes in our hands and right out. So we have to really fix that. But I want to stop there. Please, to learn more about ACBN, feel free to go to our website, but get involved, join our study groups, be part of the conversation, and really support us in building this ecosystem as strong as possible.
Thank you, Ryan, for that. Victor, I want to bring you right to the stage to facilitate that. And thank you for those empowering discussions, Ryan and Tiffany, and giving us that insight into the data. What is out there? What is happening in the ecosystem? And again, just demonstrating the need and the fact that we are working together, that we have to do this communally. The problems facing the Black community are bigger than any one organization. So we all need to work together, and we all need to figure out how can we support and amplify each other. So Victor, I'll turn it over to you. We've gotten a lot of questions and so on, and certainly would love to hear comments from the panel with regard to what we've heard. Victor, turn it over to you.
Ashay, thank you so much, Craig. As mentioned, my name is Victor Beausoleil. I am the founder and executive director of SETSI, a husband, father of four, and grateful to my ancestors and the creator to be able to build and serve today with you all. In terms of my task, I have the ability to engage the panelists first and foremost, before we go to the questions in the chat, specifically around the remarkable work that Tiffany and her colleagues at FACE are facilitating, as well as our brother Ryan and his colleagues at ACBN. So for our panelists, Doug Mintor, Susan Henry, Kevin Edwards, Al Ramsey, my colleague Mona Lisa, are there any actionable insights, hot pursuits that you'd like to add to the discussion, specifically around what Ryan and Tiffany have shared so far?
Yes, I think I could start, Victor. Great to be here. I think, it was really interesting to see that, we have, I think it's 84% nano in the very small business category of 1 to 4 employees. And I think that's a correlation between both Tiffany's and Ryan's data. And, it really goes to show where we are concentrated as a Black community, particularly around entrepreneurship. There's a lot of need for growth to scale out those businesses. And I think as we move forward in this presentation, we'll really get more insight into, why they're in that category and how do you move them down to the larger when we talk about those that are, 5 employees and to 49. How do we get there? And do we even have more that's larger than that? Is this our largest category in Canada for Black businesses? Black businesses are, fostering our economy. So we need to figure out how they're going to grow. And I think this data really shows the work that we need to do to get there. But in saying that, I commend FACE and ACBN for the work they're doing and getting, the financing in the hands of, our Black entrepreneurs who need it.
Ashe, thank you so much for your leadership as always, Susan. We'd love to hear from you, Doug, Mona Lisa, Al, and Kevin, please. Feel free to take your seat.
I'll say this real briefly. I want to echo what everyone else has said. I want to applaud Ryan, yourself, even. The Black Manifesto, when I first came to Canada, I just want to say this real briefly. When I first came to Canada and just looked objectively from the United States at Canada, and specifically Black Canada, the first thing that came to mind within about a couple of weeks is I said, this is a Black Renaissance. And this is a year before COVID. So this is before #George Floyd. This is before everything got crazy. And I was just looking objectively at Canada, Black Canada. And I said, there's a Black Renaissance, fertile ground for a Black Renaissance. Now that you have a Black Manifesto, now that you have FACE Coalition, now that you have this Black ecosystem with all of these funded organizations, I think, that prognostication is becoming true. So I just wanted to put that positive note, because many times we look at things from a, glass half empty standpoint versus a glass half full. And I think we're glass half full with much more room to grow. And so I just wanted to say that, but I want to echo the stats. Just our own stats at the Chamber, just looking at the 600 plus firms that have come through our programming since January, 30% have been denied a loan, right? 18% were Francophones, 33% social enterprises, 55% were women. So that kind of goes back to echo what Tiffany was saying earlier. And 67% of the firms that we're interacting with are less than 2 years old. So we're a young ecosystem, but Canada as a whole is a young business ecosystem. I think the first venture capital fund just got started 15 years ago. So Canada's young in this ecosystem thing, as it relates to, if you make comparisons to the UK or the United States even. So we're all young. So we need tenacious patience with one another. And then the last thing I'll say is this: the axiology of people of African descent. And an axiology is a thing of highest value to a group of people or a culture. It's relationship. That is the one thing you can't speed through. You have to do the work. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And we can't just move quickly every single time. We have to build those relationships, and you're seeing the impact of those relationships. Victor, I met you when I first came here, and Ryan, some of the two of the people that I met when I first came to Canada, and look how long it's taken for us to build the relationship. It just takes time. you have to spend time with each other to build a relationship. So that's all I have to say.
Ashe, it's been a remarkable journey, my friend, and definitely we invest time, great ROI on the relationship. And to your points, as Brother Craig mentioned, there is an abundance, and we can't have a deficit-based approach to any of this work. It has to be asset-based. Black will always be in style, and we need to stay abundant in that spirit and energy. I'm going to hand it off to one of our other colleagues before I go to some of the questions in the chats. Please feel free to come off mute. We can't hear you, Al. We still can't hear you, Al. No problem. While you're focused on fixing the text, don't stress. Take your time. We'll hear you in a few seconds. Our colleague Mona Lisa, as well as Kevin, are there any insights, hot pursuits you'd like to share while Al gets his microphone working?
So, go ahead, Mona Lisa, please.
Thank you. I just want to jump in and once again, echo what everybody else has been saying. On our side at Futurepreneur, of course, our focus is on startups and on young entrepreneurs aged between 18 to 39. But even with that, I see in looking, in hearing the presentations of both Tiffany, Ryan, the stats that we're seeing within our program are consistent in terms of the types of businesses that are being started, the size as well, the industries, and a stat that I'm particularly proud of, and that is also consistent with what I've seen here tonight so far, is about 49% of our businesses are women, a majority owned by women. So, we're not surprised, very happy actually to see that, not surprised, but it's just interesting to see that all around everything's consistent, and to also echo what Doug just said. Ever since I joined Futurepreneur, I said that the success of our program is really reliant on how well we work on the ground with all of the other organizations, because a lot of the entrepreneurs come to us are not eligible. We're able to refer them to FACE or to other organizations. Same goes for capacity building. I think it's a huge, still a big, I'm going to call it an issue. There's still a lot of work to do in that sense, but we're all working towards that. So yeah, all in all, I like to also say, end this on a positive note, to see that I'm excited for the years to come based on what's happening now and what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The stats are compelling, but they also show the leadership that's within our community. When Tiffany shares those data sets, this is remarkable work for our community that's never been done, literally historic. So definitely I affirm everything you're saying. Thank you so much, Mona Lisa. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I think all of the distinguished panelists have said a lot of great things, and the data spoke for itself in certain aspects. One thing that I wanted to say, and I love a good quote, is that, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so happy to be able to bring so many different players in this ecosystem together. And I think as we continue to work together and work with the entrepreneurs who we're looking at this data for, we will find ways to have everybody go together. The ecosystem that is being built is one being built on small success upon small success and learning upon learning. And as we continue to share information and build that system of support, I feel very proud of the work being done, and we have a long way to go.
Ashe, we appreciate your leadership, my friend. Thank you, brother. Craig, please go ahead.
Yeah, first I want to try to see if Al, you've been able to stick handle. Oh no, still not. Al, it might be, maybe try to phone in.
Or click the arrow by the microphone and switch the microphone, and then switch it back sometimes works.
There you go. Yeah, might want to just do just call in on a phone just to try to see if we can do that. I echo what everybody is saying, and the important thing, and this is why this is so powerful today, to have everybody on the call, and we're truly hopeful, Al, that we can get your voice on as well because of your leadership in this space for so long. But yeah, it is critical to understand, have these kind of heartfelt conversations. And we are going to get into some real tough questions that have been shared with attendees who have sent us some stuff that we're going to answer. But it is a conversation that we've had, and Ryan, you touched on it. What is a small business? What is an entrepreneur? That we need to get into that, because where we see the media and so on is focused on, well, how many people are not being successful. And we understand that because of systemic anti-Black and racism, there are barriers, real barriers for Black businesses who should qualify, that they're having to meet a standard that nobody else is. And we have documented evidence of that. But there's also another thing that we need to understand in looking at that amount who are not qualified, is that understanding that also due to systemic anti-Black racism, that means our Black entrepreneur pool also is less prepared with tools, with access to capital, with generational capital, with access to networks of funds, with the understanding of what it is you need, the language, the social networks you need to navigate this space as well. And that is why the capacity building programs that we're doing are focused specifically on that. And to understand, again, running a business is hard. 50% of all businesses fail regardless, right? And what we know in the pandemic, Black businesses fail at a higher rate than anybody else. So it is not an easy road. And what we are looking at is the businesses who are committed to this, to provide them with an opportunity, with a chance for success. But it is a hard conversation, and you need to see the commitment. I remember just quickly last year when we launched our grant program for Black businesses through CLR. One of the criteria we said is, well, you have to be a registered business, right? Which doesn't mean you can be a sole proprietorship, whatever. You just have to be a registered business. And a lot of people actually went up in arms. And you have to understand, I mean, this is a $60 investment in your company to make so that you can access other capital, that you can access other supports. And like, we're going to make a $10,000, $15,000. These are grants we're giving. And you got to be able to make an investment of $60 in your thing if we're making a $10,000 to $15,000 investment in you. And it is something that, again, with our partner there, Pitch Better, who was focused on Black women entrepreneurs, we were very proud to see that we actually helped build that capacity. And I think, Doug, you've talked about it now. So that was a significant issue a year ago. Right now, in terms of seeing who's coming through the door, the majority are registered, right? It's such a small amount that isn't now, and that's a significant change in just a year. So we're seeing some growth. We're seeing some of that, and I'll stop there.
Thank you so much for all those insights, Craig. I want to hand it off to you, Ryan. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, real quick. Just when Greg was mentioning that, we have to realize we've also been given, I'll say, crumbs, and are trying to now build multi-billion or multi-million, grow this ecosystem with carve-outs that don't cut it. And I'll quote you, Victor, where you say, we shouldn't be talking about millions. We should be talking about billions when we're working with the Black community, and we've been given millions. Sometimes organizations have been given less than $1 million, and now we have to really get them prepared to really get into this fight. And again, I'll say quick, I don't want to get in trouble, but this is called real talk. And if you want the real talk answers from me, ask for it. Otherwise, you're going to get the fluff, because the federal government funds ACBN. So I can't talk shit about them. You know, we get money from some of these corporations, so you can't really talk. We're really muzzled when we're brought in these situations, and we really can't talk to what people are feeling. I mean, I tear up sometimes. I get calls from entrepreneurs that are dealing with the banks, and they're really frustrated, and then I can't help them. And then it comes on to, what are we really doing with ACBN? Are we really helping entrepreneurs? And this keeps me up at night. So that's where I'm glad that we're having the real talk, but we have to go a lot deeper to really get the support to these entrepreneurs.
Absolutely, Ryan. Completely. A lot of times it is baskets to carry water, but we will bring the water to the people regardless. So we've got a lot of insights, and we have a few questions from the chat. I want to make sure that I respect folks. It says, my name is Stephen. Oh, go ahead.
If I might, Victor, I'm trying to see if that's Al who's been able to call in. Is that you? We're hoping, Al.
Let's see. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes?
All right.
All right.
We are all clapping
All right.
for
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I know I am, I'm so honored to be here tonight with my community, to be honest. And I think, a lot of the conversation that's been happening right now is exactly the conversation that needs to happen, right? Right here on the screen is our ecosystem of support. This is the biggest value our community can give to institutions like banks and TD. It's absolutely the biggest value in this entire process, because far too long, we did not have this to collaborate. And someone mentioned in the chat regarding collaboration. My job here as the Vice President of the Black Customer Segment Strategy is to deliver the entire bank to the Black community and not waiting for the community to come to us. However, it's also to deliver the best of the bank to the community. And we've done that. That's exactly what we're trying to do, I should say. And, partners like FACE or BOF, BBI, DEBC, because there's a lot of community partners out there. They're the ones that we want to work with so that can give us those insights on our community and entrepreneurs to help us inform the way we assess these individuals. And that's always been that missing element when you look at assessing folks. And that's important. And we are on the premise of what we want to do is exactly the fact that we do not want to say no. We may say no, not yet, but there's other resources for you. And that's important. And we want to build a program. We really do want to build a program that's not a tactic. A product with criteria, that's a tactic, which is important. Don't get me wrong. But even with that tactic, you're going to box out the majority of people right now on their journey. And you don't want to do that. And that's why when we started this, we anchored on the community and asked the community, what do they want from us, the TD Bank? You know what they said to us? And we actually did research. We did qualitative research and quantitative research. And I was proud to say we used actually a Black research firm to do that for us. To work with our mainstream research firm to make sure that we go and get that insights and our community felt comfortable in giving us a salient insight, not just, just give us veneer. They say they want a couple things. They want access to capital. Absolutely, they want that. But beyond that, what they said, they want financial empowerment so that they can make sound financial decisions for themselves and their family. That's what they want. You know the analogy of giving them a fish? Yes. Feeding for a day or teaching the fish, for life? That's exactly. And I'm proud to say today, and I'm not here to just say, here's a wonderful we are at TD Bank. It's a learning process for us right now. The BOF right now, hot on the wire. What we did was we just launched, working with you and a bunch of folks to launch, the microcredit program. That's important. That is really, truly important. So the way I look at it is, when we look at the Black community, right now on the screen, FACE, BOF, all the community organization, you provide those insights to us and our team. And we went to work and we said, in order for us to do that, we want to design a program with a dedicated team with advisors, but also with relationship managers to be those key liaison between the bank and the Black community. That's what we wanted to do. And so what we're having this conversation is so important right now. It's really important because a lot of this is people need to build capacity. And I'm speaking in choir here, but there's a lot of folks on the call here. People, or folks, they really need us to be there for them and in their journey, right? That's what the community is telling us. And I think that is what this provides us as a TD Bank, for example, and other institutions, gives us that real insight on how we should support the community. And I'll pause there.
Ashay, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for your leadership, Al. And I'm so happy that you're able to stick handle, as Craig mentioned, some of those technical difficulties. Your insights are remarkable. And indeed, we do need to transition and build products and programs and really ensure that the institutions for our community are in place and to create pathways towards Black-led intermediaries and Black-led wholesalers. Because remember, Black-led, Black-serving, Black-mandated is our goal. And we need to have those institutions in place to create the generational wealth that is required for our communities. Once again, thank you, my friend. So I want to make sure that I respect the chat. We have a colleague in the chat, Greg Davis, 40 brick and mortar outlets for his magazine that is being distributed in the West. His question was specifically around Black-led media being shut out from various programs and opportunities. And he wants to find ways and means to be on the radar for consideration. I think it's an important question because we've seen onslaughts of media outlets not truly respecting our community, and most importantly, sometimes even being very performative or disrespectful to institutions within our community, especially the newest ones and most nascent and vulnerable. So definitely love to open up the chat for some real talk amongst our colleagues here. Go ahead, Tiffany.
No, I just wanted to say, hi, Greg. Melanistic Magazine is a great magazine that I got the chance to meet while I was out in Alberta. FACE has used their magazine to be able to promote our program, and we intend to continue to do so. And I think it's important, as you mentioned, Victor, that we have to walk the walk, right, and talk the talk at the same time. And that means we have to use the services of Black entrepreneurs and our Black media to empower them to be able to get into the grassroots. There's always going to be the narrative at the larger context in terms of the big media outlets, but they are going to shape news the way that they see fit. They don't have a connection to us. They don't understand our reality, and they're not going to tell the stories from our voice and with the energy in which we're feeling tonight on this call, which is we're moving towards progress. We don't have time to be petty. We have time for progress. So shout out to you, Greg. And I would encourage any of the ecosystem partners and organizations or anybody who wants to put through the message directly to the community to use as much Black media as possible. Hi, Convo Media as well, who works with FACE.
Yeah, Convo Media by Blacks, Roger Dundas, Camille, incredible work they're facilitating for a very long time. Was there any other insights or hot pursuits from colleagues on the panel?
I just echo that, and I think that's kind of part of that was a genesis of our conversation, looking at how again, whenever a Black community organization steps forward, the target that's on their back. And I know we've had these conversations as a community. How do we as community organizations rally behind each other to provide support so that we can, and this is kind of a show of strength. So that's what this is. This is showing that, you know, it's easy for this divide and conquer. It's easy to say, you know, this Black organization is over there, this Black organization is over there. No. We're all in the game and we're all working together for the same cause, right? The challenges facing our community are bigger than any one organization. We all have to come in, we all have to find our lane, find our support, and we support each other. And if we are attacked in the media, we come together in the media and using channels. When we do job ads, you know, reach out to, as you said, brother Roger Dundas, who, by the way, is a high school classmate of mine from high school in Jamaica. That's how far back we go. And you make sure that you invest there, that we go on, you know, the Dr. Vibe show. And I was pleased to say when you know, we had our partnership, we announced our partnership with CIBC, that we said, Austin Walters from CIBC, let's come on the Dr. Vibe show so people can hear you and hear you talk about your reality. And with, you know, with our partners, the TDs and BMO and so on, we have to ensure that we do look at those connections into Black-led media so that we can speak our voice and we can build their capacity as well.
Indeed. I really want to be respectful of the chat. So we're going to take two more questions from the chat before we move on in terms of the agenda. Regarding the partnerships with other ecosystems, when it comes to microloans, there is mention of Van City and Alterna. Are these serving only British Columbia and Ontario, or are they available for other provinces as well, namely Alberta? I want to hand this off to my colleague, Susan Henry, who's led microfinance in Canada for, actually, I don't want to date you, for a considerable amount of time.
Thanks, Victor. So microfinance is really about providing small capital, as Tiffany mentioned. Our partnership with FACE, which includes Alterna and Van City, is between 10 to 25,000. Right now with the credit unions, there's no other partners. There's some interest and they're looking into this, and Tiffany can talk about that. But there's many community nonprofit organizations within the different provinces that provides this sort of flexible financing tool for underserved communities. So I would encourage them to sort of look at their community organizations or reach out to FACE. They may have some suggestions because Alterna operates locally. We're provincially regulated, so we don't have that program. And I think BOF just launched their program, so that might be a source of where they can also get some funding.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Susan. Was there anyone else from the panel that wanted to address that question before I move on to the next one?
I'll add there, Victor. So at FACE, as Susan mentioned, we are in a pilot microlending program, which is only in Ontario and BC. And we are looking forward to, before the end of this fiscal year, so that is March 2023, to be able to announce how we are expanding the program nationally to now be able to offer microlending across the country. As Susan mentioned, because there are provincial regulations, we have to identify partners that will work with us, but we are diligently working on this to ensure that that range of capital is available through the FACE program. And I'll answer another 2 questions in the chat at the same time. We do not offer grants at FACE. We are a lending program, and we work with ecosystem partners to refer applicants who have been declined for now. I like how Al said it. It is not a no, it is a not right now. And we refer them to ecosystem partners of ours, organizations that help them to continue to work on their business plan and to be able to get them ready to come back, which you can, to apply to FACE.
Indeed. Thank you so much for your leadership. We really appreciate you. Is there anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Just real quick, Susan alluded to it, but if you go to the Black Opportunity Fund website, the loan program is live. You want to say hi? No, I don't. Thank you. I'll be right there. But yes, go to blackopportunityfund.ca. The loan program that is provided by TD is live, and that is nationwide. So you'd be able to get that microloan up to 50,000 across Canada.
Indeed. Thank you so
and
much.
I think it's important to stress.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's important to stress that even with the microloan you're getting, again, I want to really stress that we got to wrap our arms around folks when we give them these loans to help them build capacity so that they can grow and understand that they have support out there. And I think this is what we have to have, this holistic approach, not just here is your loan, you're gone. No, here's your loan, but we have support program. Let's educate our folks so they're empowered. And there's a lot of great work going across this country, from coast to coast to coast, doing great work, right? Have been slogging at this for many, many years. BBI comes to mind out there in Halifax, Ruston, but many of that across the country. And I think that is what we need to push forward, because it came out through that research. What folks are saying, yes, we do want capital. Please empower me, train me, tell me. I have a passion for my business, but teach me about how to build my business to get to my big dreams. We say to TD, small business, big dreams. What needs to be true? What are the things that needs to be true? And this here, right here on the screen, we have to tell that story in a collective manner when we wrap our arms around those folks. That is what keeps me up at night in how we really want to make impactful change and accelerate this in the community.
And and again, I apologize, but is this real talk? Like, can I talk? Because
you can talk after Craig. He has his hand up.
Fair enough.
Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to speak to that the question with regard to grants, because one of the unique things that Black Opportunity does, and it's really unique as we're a registered charitable organization, but we have a deep focus on community impact. So we have been able to offer grants to Black led businesses. Last year we did that our funding from CLAR with Facebook and with a partnership with Pitch Better that was focused on Black women entrepreneurs. So we have done that. We currently have a grant program for Black restaurants that is closing. Today's Thursday, so tomorrow. So it is closing tomorrow for Canada-wide, a grant program for Black restaurants Canada-wide. And it's kind of a part of the model that we do. And as part of our work with Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce for the wraparound supports that we are providing, we are also providing, again, through a generous donation from CIBC Foundation, we are actually providing non-repayable funding to support Black-led businesses who've been declined from lending while they are going through the capacity building program. And that's coming from my time working in immigrant settlement programs and job creation, where there's the burden put on new immigrants in terms of ESL training, in terms of skills training to get Canadian experience, but not recognizing and acknowledging that the time they're taking to go into this program is taking away from running their business. Or if their business is pre-revenue, the job that pays the bills. And this what we are doing, and again, through our partnership with Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, is ensuring that there's funding that is put in their hand as they go through on a quarterly basis. And Doug in his presentation will talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, when we talk about capital right now, we're talking about lending, but the wraparound support is also about assessing to see what is it that this company needs. Because many times, and we have to understand, you look at the subprime lending debacle in the US that wiped out a generation of Black wealth because individuals who didn't qualify for lending were given it, and they were giving it at terms that were unrealistic, and it wiped out the community. So some of the things we're doing and the assessments that we see Ryan doing, that we see Doug, Canadian Black Chamber, is finding out really what is it that they may think that they need a loan. And for many, the loan may be the worst. Maybe it's what you need is a marketing strategy, a customer acquisition strategy, and it's just honing your business plan. So that's the support that we look to provide to them. And these are free resources. These are free resources available for Black entrepreneurs.
Indeed, thank you so much for your leadership, Craig, especially the orgs that you're working with. Pitch Better is doing some remarkable work. Our colleague Amoy Henry and Adila Carter. CLAR is doing great work. I actually just met with Elder Michael Forrest as well as the new Executive Director, Jamila, earlier today at CBCC. So remarkable work. We appreciate your leadership. Ryan, off to you, my friend. Please share, brother.
And I know I'm going to get in trouble, but Al,
well, don't say it then.
Hey, no, it has to be said because this is called Real Talk. When TD now has this data, but we put in applications to actually do the capacity building work, and it wasn't you, but hey, the team declines it. So now we created a loan program. Now they're going to be getting money, but the capacity building part isn't there and funded properly. This is exactly what happened with Phase. Phase gets launched, but the ecosystem was supposed to come before it so we can be prepared to get these entrepreneurs ready for Phase. Instead, Phase gets the windfall and is overwhelmed because the ones that need support and shouldn't even apply to begin with didn't have the ecosystem to go to. So I love everything that's happening, but we're mentioning things that are underfunded. So I just want to say, if we're serious about this whole wraparound support and the data, we want to follow the data and make good decisions, that needs to be fully funded too.
If I may respond to that. I may respond to that in terms of our commitment. Yeah, if I may respond to that. So listen, we've been at this, doing this work for a long time, TD Bank. And yes, we can't fund everything, and I want to be honest here, obviously, but we have a lot of partners that we support to help with this. BOF, we start with BOF. We're working with FACE right now, and we have many partners across the country, whether it be BBPA, BBI, BEBC, etc. So we are looking at a lot of this. And as we build, it's not a one and done. This is a journey we're on. Okay? This thing, we launched this. So when we went to market, we did research, real deep research. We stepped back and said, okay, how can we help put this into practice, into place? What we did was we hired a fully staffed, fully funded team, right, for the Black community, which is unique in the financial industry. And the idea is to deliver that to our community, to provide education, literacy, and also champion folks coming into the organization. Then we went and we looked and said, okay, that's the first C of colleagues. The second C is community. Okay, so who are our community partners that we would like to support and start, right? It is a stage approach. We started with BOF. We gave one of the largest funded to a Black organization, Black-led, $10 million over 5 years. And that's in addition to many community organizations from across the country. So it's a stage approach as we evolve over time, right? Again, I'm not going to say not now, but maybe later as we evolve our strategy, right? So we have a very unique strategy in place, and I'm very proud of our strategy. Yes, we can't do everything all at once, but as we evolve this, our intentions are really clear in what we're doing, and proof is in the pudding in what we have delivered so far, including today, press release with the BOF, and what we are doing with BOF also to provide wraparound services for our community. So it's a journey, and we are building.
Thank you so much for those insights, Al. We really appreciate your leadership, and thank you for your candor and transparency and vulnerability, Ryan. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, wanted to, jump in and just share some. I hear some of Ryan's frustration, and I share some of the sentiment that Al is speaking about. Stepping into this space, this is something that is relatively new, and as financial institutions, we are out here trying to find the best way to navigate providing help. And I feel like I could touch on a couple of the other questions that have come in about how the media is positioning different things, And one of the questions that we always get is, how are you comparing yourself to your competitors? And we constantly have to go back to the message that, this is a mission, not a competition. It's not competitors, but multiple organizations working towards empowering a community and a whole segment of our society, right? And as we learn, and I've done work closely with Ryan, with others on the call, Doug, and with Craig as well, it is a learning process, and we will continue to iterate. I mean, it's been said on this call, right? Like this is the season. And as we begin to understand how we put together this ecosystem, there will definitely be stumbles. The idea being that we learn from those, and we learn from the people who are involved, and we learn from each other and share information so that, previous stumbles don't necessarily mean future stumbles, so that as we progress in building this ecosystem, it's always from strength to strength. As we learn, we move forward. And that financial education that Al mentioned and sharing it with people, it also counts for those of us at this table within the ecosystem, right? Like, it's not just the entrepreneurs that we're trying to help, because we are learning in a new space. And as we continue to learn, continue to share, I only see us improving what we're doing and finding better ways to support those in the community and to support each other.
Indeed. Thank you so much for your leadership. We're going to go to Susan, and then we're going to get to Brian Smith's question, as well as a few others that I'm seeing in the chats. Go ahead, Susan.
So first, Victor, throughout your agenda, it's not going to work tonight, I don't think.
Yeah, so.
I want to say it's really great to see all the financing over the last 2 years that's come into the Black ecosystem. When we started the journey of microfinance 22 years ago, it was because there was a lack of access to capital for underserved communities, with the focus on BIPOC women and racialized Canadians. Our program served 76% racialized Canadians who could not get funded. But now the capital is available, and it's a combination of the banks, credit unions, other nonprofit organizations coming together. And we can see, though, that with all this capital, Tiffany mentioned, what, 166,000 from FACE and BEC, and if you add Alterna City, CIBC, TD, and others, it's a lot of capital, but it's not being deployed. And we have to look at some of the root causes of why that capital is not being deployed, or why, it's being declined, which is still the inequities that's facing our communities. Ryan mentioned some of this, like the challenges is not just the financing, and Al talked about this, it's the wraparound support. And being in this field for well over, I think, 30 years now, it's gone beyond financing today, beyond loans. I really feel if entrepreneurs, particularly in the Black community, is not given the opportunity for fair business play, such as contracts, procurements from governments, corporations, cities, we can't compete. They won't be able to compete. They don't have the revenues. They can't grow. We won't be able to see 84% out of that nano rate that was talked about. So I think a lot of our efforts now have to turn to that ecosystem support. And when I say ecosystem support, we need to get away from thinking that businesses need the 101 start, education. That's not it. They need structured, customized, tailored sort of information that's going to help their businesses. They need strategic planning on how to move or scale to the next level. These are the areas that I see that are gaps right now in order to help our businesses move forward. I think we all have a common goal, and that's to see our businesses thrive and see them grow. So I know, Ryan, you're frustrated. I hear it. I don't sleep at night because of it. But I think if we can hit some of these root causes, we will be able to solve some of those problems or issues that we see on why we can't get the financing out the door, or why there's a higher rate of decline compared to other communities.
Absolutely, Elder Susan. Whenever you speak, I always think of the model of the Community Investment Act of 1977 in the States, and the fact that there are no Black CDFIs, community development financial institutions in Canada. FACE is the closest thing that we have to a CDFI in Canada. And when you think of the market reform that's happened over the past few years in terms of the racial reckoning, we've had market reform and we've had market fixing. We haven't had market making. And I think some of the capital and capacity building intermediaries that are working on the market making are trying their best to work together. But once again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that we all have to use radical empathy, transparency, and some bold leadership and compassion with each other in terms of how we do this work. I want to make sure we get to the chat. Brian Smith, all the funded organizations in the Black Ecosystem Fund, who keeps track of what is being done and who is doing it? Do any of these groups work together? More clarity on this is needed. And I always love provocative questions. So, and I wanted to make sure I respect the chat. I'm going to open up the floor to anyone who wants to raise their hand or come off mute.
I'm glad to answer that question. Hi, Brian. So ultimately, there's a few things. One, the government tracks it. So anything under the Black Entrepreneurship Program, which is funded by the federal government, any of those three pillars have to provide reports. So the segment of the report that you saw, for example, today that I presented will be available as our annual report on our website very shortly. So all of these organizations are going to report on their actual performance in regards to the service, to the contribution agreements in which they've agreed to with government. The other thing is that we can say at FACE, working within the BEP, we have signed MOUs with 11 of the organizations who have been funded by the federal government in our first wave of creating a pipeline to work with these different organizations. And the idea is to be able to support each other in tracking whom, in terms of which companies they have worked with to help to build their capacity and have moved them to be able to achieve getting financing from FACE. The idea behind this is, again, in a collective effort to demonstrate how we've built an effective ecosystem. And we will then broaden that to other partners as we continue to work on how to deal with supporting different entrepreneurs and their different needs. Just to your point, Victor and Ryan, to talk a little bit about again, the frustration, but what we have to do as a community. The reality of it is that we have to leverage the different positions that we're in. Craig mentioned it very well, that we all have lanes, and we all have roles. There are no shortage of supports required by Black people in this country. So it's important for us to understand that when we think about what the entrepreneurial journey looks like, sometimes we're going to be in the driver's seat and sometimes we're going to be in the passenger seat. Or like Chris Rock said, sometimes you're going to sing lead and sometimes you're going to play the tambourine. And the reality of it is I think we're learning how to do that now as a community a little bit more effectively as the resources begin. I agree, it is not enough, but it is where we have to start. And the start is what we need to focus on. If you constantly look at what you are supposed to have, then and you don't use what you have currently, you won't get there. Doug is from the US, he's going to know this very well. You take lemons and you make lemonade. That's what we do. And we're doing it well. And I think we have to be patient with each other in terms of that regard. So to your question, Brian, as we continue on the government side, those of us who are financed by government, reporting is a mandatory requirement. But we as a community, I believe, are in the midst of holding ourselves not only accountable, but supporting each other in reaching our objectives, because it means a win for the whole community.
Shay, thank you so much for your leadership as always, Tiffany. We're going to hand it off to our colleague, Ryan.
Sorry, I think Doug had unmuted first. Doug, did you want to touch on it?
Oh, we're actually going to go to Doug's presentation soon.
Oh,
so
okay.
I want to make sure that we don't take up time, Doug, but yeah, we want to get to
I'll be quick. Brian, we can't have an economic ecosystem without a social ecosystem. And so, Tiffany, by all means, I love that we're reporting to the government, but beyond the project, 44 organizations should be communicating together to leverage just that unity. And that is not happening. And so how do we now improve the communication amongst ourselves to leverage us now coming together and being called this ecosystem and actually use that to better the things that we're doing for our entrepreneurs? Just reporting to the government doesn't cut it. And when we have these ecosystem partner meetings and organizations don't show up, that is showing me that we're not holding each other accountable. Hey, Brian, you're part of FBC. I thought FBC was supposed to be an organization that brings together different ecosystems from different themes of the community. Maybe reach out and call a meeting, because you can't just ask questions and then not be part of the solution. So I'm glad that you're here so that we can actually work towards having exactly what those questions are. Let's actually get that done and not just leave it as a question in a chat, but action it. And it can definitely be actioned. I know FACE and Chamber, we're here, Black Opportunity Fund, we want to have these conversations. That's why this event is so important, because we want to show that these conversations are needed, they're happening, and we just have to keep building on it. This is a great foundation, but 11 out of 44 organizations signing the MOU, I guess it depends on our definitions of success. I would expect 100%. So let's get to that number. Hey, the train leaves and it doesn't have to be full. I get that. But if we're all funded to be part of this ecosystem and we're not working together, that is the opposite of an ecosystem. So let's actually build this ecosystem together.
Victor,
yeah, I think it's really important. Hold on. I think it's really important to not use definite statements, Brother Ryan. So when I say that, I mean to say that only your reports is going into the government. Remember, a presentation was just done this evening for over 80 colleagues in community. Like right now, we're in the midst of that. And I've seen many presentations from various ecosystem partners. And just to be clear, CBCC is not one of them, but I'm saying I've seen many presentations from various ecosystem partners that aren't just reports to government, they're also reports to the community, like what's happening here this evening. So I think once again, we have to be tempered and balanced with how we indict and how we call each other in versus calling each other out. Go ahead, Tiffany.
But I understand Ryan's frustration and wanting to see us work better together. I want to say that the first thing I said is that our report will be made available on our website. And what I was mentioning is that through our contribution agreements, because we are funded by government, we are supposed to make our results public. So that's the accountability to community. But Ryan, I 100% hear you in terms of working together. And if we've signed MOUs with 11, I also mentioned it's in the vein of wanting, as these organizations stand themselves up. Ryan, you've been in this nonprofit game for a long time, okay? And building infrastructure of where, okay, 5 years, okay. But, building infrastructure takes time. And I choose to find patience with organization as they structure up. They've been doing a lot of work with a little bit. Now they've got the resources and they've got to source up. They've got to find talent. We've got a labor shortage. They've got to find resources. There's a lot of things that takes into building infrastructure. We will get there. We start somewhere, we focus our eyes and we move towards it. But I hear you, Ryan, and we can always do better. And I think we are.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I've been doing this nonprofit thing for a very long time, for over 20 years. And I can assure you, when you think of Charles Roach, Dudley Lodge, Sharona Hall, Dr. Charmaine Marine, the list goes on in terms of elders across Canada that represent the interests of people of African descent, that have a high concentration of melanin or are Black. And they would have never believed that in 2022, there'd be millions, almost billions of dollars going towards the Black community, or even the concept of a Black ecosystem. So I'm saying all to say that this is a generational struggle, but it's all, and it requires perseverance, resilience, but once again, empathy, compassion. And I know that sounds bold and radical, but it shouldn't be. That's who we are. All our economics is predicated on cooperative frameworks. So I don't want to take up any more time. I'm seeing that in the chat, it seems like, Donald, your question was answered by a few folks in terms of the engagements around your business plan. ACBN is definitely a valuable resource that you can reach out to. Chris Beth at Empowered for X, a Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, and many others. But I want to make sure Thomas Nisbet's been very patient. So we'll do Thomas's question last and then go off to Craig and our colleague Doug's question, but I want to make sure we get to Thomas. Manufacturing and processing sectors are a huge part of the Canadian economy. It appears that in our stats this evening, there are few such businesses represented in the loan portfolio. What might be the reason for that? So once again, that'll be the last question from the chat for this segment, and we need to move on to Craig and Doug's presentation. So if there's anyone that wants to address Thomas's question specifically around manufacturing and processing, I know that Ryan, you had some great stats, as well as Tiffany. You may want to lead this piece.
Excellent. So on our side, we funded 8 companies who are in the manufacturing sector. And I agree with you, manufacturing drives is one of the verticals that we need to explore. And I think that the data that we're going to be able to pull and that FACE will be a part of in terms of understanding who is Black Canada and reflecting that, it allows for us to be able to identify where we want to be in terms of the economy and what sectors, and be able to develop parallel programs to be able to help to support us develop in those areas. I think it's an opportunity to use data to drive support programming. And if FACE can provide that via the lending that we're doing and saying, it seems as though in manufacturing we are not as present, then pick up a partnership that can help. And we have to think about the repreneuriat. I don't have the word in English, but when we start to buy back companies. I visited a company out in Hamilton, and it was an older gentleman. He said, look, I want to sell my Black owned, he had a huge slaughterhouse. It was all manufacturing, packaging. And he said, but I want to hand it off to another Black owned, to a Black business owner. We have to find ways to be able to build those bridges around our community to see us fill in the market.
Absolutely. And a shameless plug, November 24th to the 28th, we have the CBCC Social Impact Conference. And one of the panels is on succession planning and social acquisitions in the Black community, which is a really important conversation. Ryan, did you have any insights specifically around the manufacturing and processing?
Yeah, it touches on systems and processes. And that's a big thing that I see missing in our Black community. It's great that we tackle anti-Black racism and get the door open. When it's open now, we're coming through the door unprepared. And when we talk to entrepreneurs and we ask them, okay, walk us through your system, and they pull out a paper and pen and show us they're like, whoa. The digital transformation that is happening around us is missing our businesses. So we have to get them evolved and improve their digital transformation so that these things get automated, they're easy to understand. And when you present that to banks and investors, you look very polished. And again, that comes on ACBN and the ecosystem to get our entrepreneurs polished. Talking about franchising and expanding, it's all about systems and replication. A lot of our entrepreneurs can't grow because they don't have the systems. So within manufacturing, again, we didn't see a lot of Black entrepreneurs in that space. So looking where the trends are going, should we be educating people to get in that space, because that's where the money is? Clean techs and other things, cybersecurity, other software development, things, IT development, things that we're not in, but we should be in. We have to really have these discussions and take a step back to strategize. We're always in the work. A lot of times we don't step back and have these conversations to strategize where's the world going? How are we getting our entrepreneurs ready for where the world's going and be ahead of the trend? It can be done, exactly like Tiffany said. I am optimistic, as frustrated as I sound. I do get sleep, but we can do so much better. And that's where I get emotional, because I don't want to be perceived as a leader, but leading people down the wrong track. And this data that Tiffany's shared and we've been able to dig into helps us actually make better decisions so we can support entrepreneurs in the best way possible and see our community actually get economic empowerment.
Absolutely, my brother. And just another plug to a colleague. We have a remarkable colleague in our community, Charles Buchanan, that's been doing some remarkable work in the cybersecurity space. He's actually one of the action leads of the Canadian Center for Nonprofit Digital Resilience. So once again, these are sectors and work that we have to do as a community. I'm going to hand it off. So we're going to calm down on the chat for now. Please feel free to continue to populate, and we'll try our best to get back to you. But I want to make sure we respect the agenda, as well as some of the folks and the panelists that prepared presentations to discuss. We're going to hand it off to our colleague, Craig Wellington and Doug Minter. Doug, are you going first, or is Craig going first? So I want to make sure that I'm in step.
Yeah, I'll go in first, and I'll make it really brief. So Nia, if you could share the screen, because I think a lot of what I'm going to do is going to be kind of setting up Doug, because I really want Doug to drill down into the capacity building programs or Elevate that are available. There's a lot of questions we're seeing in the chat about, I need help with business planning, I need help with financial planning, I need help with legal. Those are questions we also got in advance, and those are kind of supports that we have available. So just in terms of what we do, so in terms of clarity, Black Opportunity Fund is kind of unique in terms of the community organizations in this space, because we don't receive and have never asked for a penny from government. So in terms of what we have done and the supports that we have provided, in terms of supports to Black not-for-profits and charities, in terms of the capital for Black-led businesses and the capacity building, we have gone out and brought new capital in to fund those initiatives. And again, when we've been approached by government, we've actually redirected it to other organizations, and we have provided leadership, we provided strategic direction, and have worked as an orchestrator to bring community together. So I think that is one of the things that we like to do, which is like this group. It is really critical. We thought there was an opportunity here to bring everybody together. And Ryan, I want to thank you for the prompt, looking at, as you said, the way that Black Opportunity Fund has done these business town halls over the last couple of years. Here's an opportunity. Let's use this platform and bring everybody together. Nia, can we jump ahead 2 slides, please? Well, actually, jump back 1. Sorry, just again, just kind of jump back another 1. Yeah, there we go. So this is actually, again, what we've done is we've mobilized from capital from corporate Canada. And I think, again, that's something, Ryan, you were talking about. It's bringing new money into play. Because one of the things that we as Black Opportunity Fund, and thanks for the leadership of those who helped set up this incredible organization, was to identify a strategy that was about accessing capital from corporate Canada, then philanthropy, and then going to government. And you see there's the endowment fund, which is one of the things that we've advocated for, which we look at supporting not-for-profits and charities. But it's this kind of support pulling together, like the banks, to work together. I love seeing CIBC on the stage here, TD on the stage. We have partnerships with BMO, National Bank, as Kevon and Al have said. We're all in this game together. This is not about competition. It's about working together for one goal. Jump ahead 2 slides, Nia. Yeah, right there. Back it up. There we go. So these are just kind of the supports that we have in place, and every one of these we have collaborative partners. The non-repayable funds that we provide to support capacity building training through funding from the CIBC Foundation. Doug is going to speak to what that means and the layers in it, and that's part of the capacity building that CIBC built into their lending program, that there's capacity building, and they look for community partners to initiate that. And what we looked at is, again, non-repayable funding to support that. The Black Business Loan Program that we have started, where BOF is actually backstopping the loan. We are providing the collateral for the lending for Black businesses who have been declined lending by Canadian financial institutions, including FACE. The capacity building programs, we also have a partnership with BMO for the same, to support their lending program. We have the grant program for Black businesses that we've done with funding through Facebook, with funding through DoorDash that we've done. And the next stage of it, because what we're looking at is how do we be a partner with Black entrepreneurs at every stage of what their needs. So we will be launching an investment program, taking equity stakes in Black entrepreneurs that we will be launching next year. National Bank came on board with a $5 million contribution. We have 2 other partners already at the table, and we are looking to launch a fund next year that we have decided, in terms of the board of BOF, that in our investment thesis, we will take equity stakes in Black entrepreneurs, but we will also fund Black VCs to help build their capacity, a fund-to-fund approach. So there you go. I see a question here: VC program disguised as non-repayable loans. I have no idea what that question is. We provide non-repayable funds, not loans, to capacity building support. They're not loans. There's nothing attached to it other than they're engaged in the capacity building programs that Doug Minter is doing. We take no equity in it. No, these are non-repayable funds. The only condition that these businesses have: 1, you've been declined lending by a financial institution, and 2, you are registered with these capacity building supports. And what we do, and Doug will talk about that, we have line of sight into the banking partners, that we're able to see what was the reason they were declined and match up the program to help solve that. So it's not generic stuff. This isn't just attend a couple of workshops, tick a box, and you're done. This is, we have mentorship. We have financial managers. We have accountants working with them. We have, from our partners, from TD, from CIBC, from BMO, we have commercial banking professionals who are working, giving advice. We're developing a contract law 101 program that we will be developing as well. So I want to stop there because I want to turn it over to Doug and Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, who when we look to develop our capacity building program, instead of reinventing the wheel, we looked at the work that CBCC was doing. Doug and I had extensive conversations. We audited their programs, and they're doing tremendous, impactful stuff. So I want to turn it over to Doug to talk about, because it's going to answer a lot of the questions we've seen on the chat. So Doug, I'll leave it to you. Doug, are you?
I believe Doug just got bumped out.
Okay.
He is trying to log back in right now. He just gave me a call, so just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
So we'll give you the second, Doug. We appreciate your leadership. Do we want to, Craig, go to a couple more of the questions while we wait for Doug?
What I'd like, Victor, I don't want, and there was a question in there about the questions that were also sent in advance. So I do want to touch on some of those as well, to make sure we do have an opportunity for those. So I know you have some of those, if we can kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is open to all the participants. A frequent focus of community in the media is that 60 to 70% of all Black entrepreneurs who apply for loans through the various Black entrepreneurship programs are declined for lending. How do you address this important concern, and what is the proposed remedy? So Craig, you just alluded to one of the proposed remedies, but feel free for anyone to jump in around that question.
Well, I think that if I could jump in, particularly as somebody who's seen the media particularly shed negative light on what we're able to do in a very small space of time for an issue that's existed forever. If we look at what it means to have over 16,000 applicants in progress, meaning that these are not complete applications. They do not have the necessary corporate documents, or they've not answered all the mandatory questions to submit. However, that does show the community standing up to say, I want to be in business, or I am in business, but I need support. And that's how you create a bridge to ecosystem organizations to help with capacity building. As far as I mentioned, having 2,000 complete applications submitted and being able to approve 181, that means we're at 22% success rate or approval rate, which is impressive in a small space of time and on par with industry standards. So I think it's important to contextualize what that means. I think Craig did talk about how do we respond as a community to ensure that we are locking arms and making sure that our narrative is under control. I believe that means that we mustn't be scared. We have to be very explicit in saying that our community is under development by us. So let us celebrate our successes and demonstrate our growth, which was systemically stagnated. So thank you very much for your comments, but no thank you. And we have to be able to say that boldly and use our own media to tell our own story to our own people, and also make sure that we control the narrative to other stakeholders about our growth and the story of our growth.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Tiffany, as always. We're gonna go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, I echo that, and that's a conversation we've had, and you know, Doug has always posed the question: what is an entrepreneur? Because when we look at the 70, you know, the question we need to look at in that 70 is how many of those are actually business ready, because we've, you know, or capital ready, and we've talked about that. So, you know, are you ready? Are you at the stage, and are you prepared to go to be capitalized? You know, the analogy I always make is about the NBA. You know, anybody can go and buy a basketball. That doesn't give you the right to play in the NBA, right? There's levels, right? And when the NBA looks at its stats and its numbers, the NBA doesn't go out and say, well, how many people bought a basketball, and that's the pool for the NBA. What they look at is draft ready, the pool of draft ready players, because every level you get in a sport, to use the analogy, there's a little bit more expected. You have to do more coaching. You're getting higher level of competition, and it's the same in business. And that's what we need to look at. Our goal should be, how do we create a bigger pool of draft ready players opposed to sell more basketballs in Sport Check, right? It is what is required to be a successful and sustainable business. And again, we know it ain't easy. So what is it we need to do? So we need the playbook, and we need to make sure we're all talking together, and we're making sure that there's a bigger pool of capitalized ready, whether that be loan, whether that be investments, and so on. And we need to talk the same language. We need to make sure we're measuring the same things. Doug, you're able to get in now?
Yes. Sorry about that. Can everyone hear me? Okay, fantastic. Do I have control of the slides, or?
If you don't, Nia can certainly help you navigate along.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward through this just to kind of, in the interest of time. So one of the things we've done, we have 15 advisors on deck for our Elevate Black Business programs, which began.
Doug, you have control.
Okay, Thank you so much. Yeah, so I want to get through this quickly. I don't want to talk too much, but I just want to talk about kind of the overriding kind of issues that we're dealing with here. I don't know why this is moving without me touching it. So,
Doug, you have control.
okay, thank you. We have 15 advisors that we've grown to. We use the growth wheel. They've all been trained, and we have advising software. This software, one of the things that I wanted to mention about this software is we're able to leverage our partnerships within the ecosystem and the value of the ecosystem. And we went back to growth wheel and said, hey, cut your rate. It's very expensive. So we got them to cut the rate by almost 75%. And that rate is now given to anybody in the ecosystem. So any of the other orgs that need advising software, they're able to get that at a very, very substantially lower price. So when we talk about partnering within the ecosystem, it's not just providing services and partnering with each other, it's group buying together. Like all of us need stuff. All of us need infrastructure, resources, HubSpot, Zoom, all these different things, computers. We should be buying in bulk together. And we've started working on those initiatives. And I just wanted to point that out to show that we are doing those things together. Quickly, we have an accelerator program, which we named after the Avro mock engine that was built here in Canada to help people get off the ground. Again, the growth wheel software that we're using is available to any other Black org at an extremely discounted rate that basically cuts a company into 4 pieces and then cuts them into 20 focus areas. Again, the reason why we like this, it matches with the axiology of people of African descent. We need to see the whole picture. We're very holistic as a group of people. And in less than 10 minutes, I can sit down with anyone at any level and say, tell me which of these focus areas is keeping you up at night. And quickly we can figure out what you need and provide tools and services to them. Again, we have 15 advisors. This is just a handful. Victor, you talked about Dr. Vibe. He's one of our advisors. We have a really good crew of people, and it's expanding. We provide business plan writing. Again, we have a software that we think is very user-friendly. We've worked with Kevon and the team at CBCC to make sure it adheres to banking processes. And it produces the 3 financial statements that every Black business needs to have: beginning balance sheet, an income statement, and cash flow analysis. Well, profit loss and a cash flow analysis. Some people call it income statement. Those are critical, and you've got to have user-friendly software. And it's very easy to use, and then we back it up with support. Personal financial literacy. I think it was mentioned before about financial empowerment. We have a single advisor who does nothing but live and breathe personal financial literacy, helping people remediate the credit, helping people with their personal budgeting, all of those things. And we have a mastermind program that's a year-long program. So once you get out of acceleration and you're ready to scale, this is where we incubate you in this year-long program. We also have an advanced program. So folks that are trying to scale above 100,000, get to their first million and beyond. We have a mentor protege program. We're working with Craig. We have mentors from TD as well as EY that have come into that program. They just started sessions with them. This is where we get to scale up the gazelles, the people that have proven themselves, gotten to their first 100,000 and want to go higher. And we're trying to continue to push them. We also have a masterclass series. This masterclass series is asynchronous learning. We record all the videos, make that public to all of our participants. We have 600 plus applicants since we started, 182 direct referrals from CIBC. We're also getting referrals from BMO and other banks, but this just kind of shows you the volume of what we went through. And last year we had a mastermind program with 45 participants in it. Now we've it's tripled all of those. So it's been a really good ride and a lot of growth. And you can see the numbers here, and I won't go read all those, but it just shows you what we're doing and the amount of people that we're dealing with. And then this is our upcoming class. So we're continuing to interact and interface with Black entrepreneurs on a quarterly basis. And then, these are some of the stats, some of the key impacts, and it's actually more than this, but we've had a total economic investment of about $719,000. So this is our small portion that we were able to contribute. Tiffany talked about their numbers. This is our portion that we were able to contribute thus far. And we want to amplify this and make it go even higher. We've had, we're doing pitch contests. We've partnered with a lot of great people like BMO, CIBC, Black Opportunity Fund, Uber, CEO Global Network. One of the other things that we've done in our partnership, we've partnered with two Black orgs, both Oya Media Group, to kind of help them get their programming off the ground. We also partnered with Keep Six, who is doing a second chance program and getting ex-offenders out of the street and into entrepreneurship. We're helping them with their music program in partnership with Universal Music Canada. So there's a lot that we are doing. But I want to say this, I cannot implore enough about the $70,000 that we've been able to give Black entrepreneurs directly from the Black Opportunity Fund. That's the thing that makes me really proud. We've done a lot of loans with CIBC, but I'm really proud of what we've been able to do with the Black Opportunity Fund, because as CIBC says, hey, we can't do your loan. Not right now, as I was saying before, we just can't. But here's an opportunity for you to receive some funding and get the help you need, and we want you to come back. And I will say this about CIBC, every single day they're calling us going, hey, do you got anybody that's ready to come back? Because we want to fund them. I cannot say enough good things about their team, about the specialists they've created for their Black entrepreneurship program all across the country. I think it's 40 plus specialists across the country that are just tailored to and dedicated to Black entrepreneurs. That's a historic thing. And again, it just bodes to the support that there is a Black Renaissance going on in Canada. And when I talk to my peers in the United States about what you guys are doing here, what we are all doing here, they are blown away. They understand it's a young ecosystem. But the fact that there's a Black manifesto, the fact that there is a national Black ecosystem group, the fact that you have the Black Opportunity Fund. Many of these things don't exist in the way that they exist here in the United States. So yes, our big brother, big sister, however you want to call the United States, it's great that we're looking to them for wisdom, but they're also looking at us. There's things that we have that don't exist in the US. The Black Manifesto to me just blows me away, because that is like the Bible. It's a framework for how we need to be operating as an ecosystem. That doesn't exist in the US. And I don't know that you could pull it off. It would take you years. The United States is a big bus. We're like a Volkswagen. So let's just be tenaciously patient with each other while we're in this Volkswagen, and just love on each other. Be tenaciously patient. Keep everyone accountable, but be patient and be empathetic. And we can go a long, long way if we do that. Craig, are there any points that you want me to bring up? I mean, I've loved the relationship with the Black Opportunity Fund, because we get in and we're in the trenches. we're talking about nuances. How do we get more money out? You know, how do we navigate the fact that, okay, if someone has bad credit and you need decent credit to get a business bank account, how do we navigate that? How do we break that cycle that people are stuck in? And those are the things that we're talking about. How can we do our programs better? How can we communicate better? That's all we do. If I have one message to say is we are on the phone with each other every single day, every single week, trying to figure out how do we do this better? And how do we build a relationship with one another? So I just want the entrepreneurs that are listening to know this is not bull. We live and eat this every single day. We don't sleep. We literally don't sleep. I mean, it's crazy. And, you know, Kevon with CIBC, there's some great people here. You know, Mona and I have had numerous conversations. What do we need to do to feed you? And she's like, what do I need to do to feed you guys? Like, we want to make sure that the entrepreneur at the end of the day has the best results. And if we make a mistake, then we own it, we eat it, and we figure out how do we get past this.
Yeah, thank you for that, Doug. And I think you're absolutely right. We're all having those conversations. And what strikes me is that passion. And I want to say, you know, again, we get that from CIBC, as you said, the team at TD who has invested in us. I mean, up and down the channel. What really strikes me is their level of passion, and you heard it from Al earlier, in solving this. There's a real commitment here, and I think that's what's different. This isn't just about stats. This isn't just about, oh, we got to make some profit or thing. It's how do we truly solve this? And I got to tell you, speaking to our banking partners, it is keeping them up at night. It is keeping them up there, and I'm seeing their programs evolve. I'm seeing CIBC's program in terms of what is their eligibility criteria, their ratio change just in the last 2 months. I'm seeing TD, who's looking to do the same thing, who constantly asks us questions about, you know, what is happening, constantly asking questions. And Doug, if there's one thing I want to talk about a little bit, is that business plan program, because it is such an interactive program. Because we work with Doug, and Doug says, I need some mentors on, you know, business plan. I need some mentors for financial, and we're bringing them. We're funneling them in. We've got a bunch of TD mentors who we just onboarded with Doug and I in the last couple of weeks. And what mentors are able to do is this program, this life plan program, is intuitive and will build out the business plan. It will build out the projections, but the mentors are able to go in. It's that level of intuition. They're able to go in and put in comments, put in information. So the tools that are being used by CBCC are just incredibly intuitive, and it's really making a massive difference. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much for your leadership, Doug and Craig. And Doug, once again, your insights are bang on, and we appreciate you. You have no idea. We give thanks. I want to make sure that we get to the questions that were sent ahead of time. So this is specifically to Futurepreneur. Futurepreneur has a specific focus on young entrepreneurs. What are the unique needs that you're seeing with young entrepreneurs, and how are you specifically addressing them?
Yes, thank you. So just, you know, very quickly, for those of you who might not know, Futurepreneur has been around for more than 25 years, and always since its beginning focused on youth entrepreneurs. For quite some time, it was only 18 to 29 or to 35, if I'm not mistaken. I joined the organization only a year and a half ago. And then after that, it was extended to 39. The reason why we focus on young entrepreneurs, aside from, I mean, we're a nonprofit funded by the federal government, certain provincial governments, and also private partners. And the Black Entrepreneur Startup Program is funded entirely by RBC. So the reason why Futurepreneur as a whole is focused on young entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs automatically, because of their age, tend to have less assets tend to have lower credit scores. It's much more difficult for them to access financing. And so we are opening the doors for them. And it goes the same with the Black Entrepreneur Startup Program. Our age criteria is the same. We focus on the youth, on the next generation, and helping them access financing. So that's why and how we address the specific needs. And I would say that I don't see, now, if we focus on the Black communities, of course, I have been focused on the youth, but in seeing the numbers and everything that has been shared with by FACE, by ACBN, I can still tell you that the issues that we are seeing are somewhat the same. Still a need for capacity building, need for education, and so, but we still see after a year and a half that things are moving in the right direction, and we've still been able to fund quite a lot of entrepreneurs. I think we're almost at 230 young entrepreneurs funded now after a year and a half. So I believe that answers the question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your leadership and all those insights in terms of the context and clarity around Futurepreneurs' work. And yeah, we just give thanks for your leadership, Mona Lisa. Thank you. I want to make sure that we get to our colleague, Kevin. To the lending institutions, what advice would you give to Black entrepreneurs to improve their chances of successfully obtaining a loan from your bank?
Happy to jump in here and address that question. I mean, I think Doug has touched on it. One of the things that we're doing is changing the conversation around lending. And Al mentioned it himself, right? As we learn, we're getting information from our risk team or adjudication team, and we're transparently communicating that. Sometimes we need patience. We need to communicate to people and let them know these are the things that you need to do in order to get financed, right? Sometimes it takes a long time to get there, but it just depends on the level of work that we have to put in. And there's work being put in on both sides. So, I mean, I see Grant Lee's comment in here about the business plans are important, but revenue trumps the business plan. As I talk about business plans, tell the story of your business in your business plan. The numbers on the sheet of paper and your historicals will be good, but given the last 2 years, what we've experienced, as entrepreneurs and as a community, we've seen great fluctuations and different things impacting what those numbers look like. So contextually, we have to create a space where we're able to look at the numbers and understand the story that goes with them. And Doug mentioned the specialists that we've put in place that work with our entrepreneurs. They're able to go out, see the sites where people want to run their business, talk to the business owner, get that information, see the passion of that business owner. But at the end of the day, what goes over to our adjudication team is the business plan and the numbers and some of the context from our specialists. And we put things in place to get that over. But my advice has been, as you build out your business plan, make sure to connect it like, this is how I intend to be successful. This is how I intend to scale my business. These are the things that I'm putting in place in order to take my revenue from this level to here, or how I plan to capture the market with my new product. It really is an opportunity to tell your story. And on our side as a financial institution, we are changing the way that story is heard, right? Like, if you look at, we talk about the system, a lot of what is used to judge what we send in, whether it's revenue or, the numbers that people are sending, Stats Canada. And when we think about Stats Canada, who has contributed to what those stats look like over the last however long, right? Like, it's completely different to what we are experiencing and living. So as we bring these cases to our teams, we have to show them like, okay, this is what Stats Canada says, but this is why what is being presented is different. And one key example, and I'll keep it quick because I know, we have some stuff to get through still, is like, we've had like beauty salons coming in and putting in an application. And on Stats Canada, if I'm not mistaken on the numbers, the average was that, the average woman would spend $50 on her hair a month. Meanwhile, we have a business plan that's saying that the average customer will spend close to 150 or 200 a month. And we have to change the dynamic around. This is a community that you have not been seeing submitting in this space. So it is different. And I was able to speak from experience because I do have my hair. I spend more than $50 a month on my hair. Far less for somebody who is very invested in their hair and that, your appearance. As a community, we are very proud of ourselves and how we look and how we present ourselves. So getting that message across to those making the decisions is important. The context, not just of the business plan and the numbers, but the societal element of the businesses that we're trying to engage in. I hope that does add something to answer the question. If anybody wants, some more information, please do let me know.
Thank you so much for your leadership. We really appreciate you. We're winding down and we're getting to a pretty large question, but I want to make sure that I respond to one question in the chat. Will all the decks and presentations be available to the folks after the session? So Craig is saying yes. So yes, folks, the presentations will be available to you. Okay, so to all the panelists, all of this money and resources have been poured into the Black entrepreneurship lending programs and capacity building ecosystem with remarkable supports. And history tells us that these investments generally wane after some time. So how do we ensure that 5 years from now, we have actually moved the needle to the point where it is sustainable, where we see sustainable change? What are the metrics for success and how do we all work together to achieve these goals? So there's a question for all of the panelists. Feel free to come off mute. Go ahead,
Victor,
Doug.
can I jump in on that one? So one of the things, and Ryan and I had this conversation, many of us have had this conversation. We built what we're trying to do based on sustainability. So at some point, these things that are no cost, entrepreneurs have to pay for them. That's just a harsh reality. And we've already built a pay-for-play model, and we'll roll it out towards the end of, once we get towards the end of the grant period, we'll be communicating to people how that works. I think ACBN and Ryan already have a pay-for-play model. So they're already looking at sustainability, right? So that's what we have to do as Black orgs. But I will say this, one of the things that we are doing, and we're going hard in the paint at the Chamber on this, is partnerships. You can leverage other partners and resources. COVID told us one thing: there's a ton of space, commercial space out there that is not being utilized adequately. People are now hybrid. They're working from home, and we've leveraged that into some partnerships to build innovation centers across Canada, one of which will be here in Toronto. And we hope to be making a large announcement towards the beginning of the year, and with one of our partners who said, hey, we love what you're trying to do. Here's space, so that you can do that at no cost. Well, that's the sustainability model that we need, so that we can have spaces and unique spaces for us to gather and grow entrepreneurs. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is investing in the businesses themselves. We're looking at models where, hey, if we provide business development for you, can we take a small equity stake? Those are things that we're looking at relative to entrepreneurship, growing entrepreneurs, but also for us as an org to be sustainable.
Indeed. Thank you so much for those insights, Doug, as always. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, one thing that if we're not talking about wealth building and building ownership and actually owning assets, we are wasting our time. So that question talks very specifically to, and I would use the ecosystem as an example. 44 organizations got money, and I'm already hearing from some organizations that when that money runs out, they're going to be struggling again. So if we're not leveraging the capital that we have access to actually build our wealth and actually purchase assets that generate income, or create our own social enterprises that generate income for ourselves, we are going to waste this whole 4 years. 1 second, dude. And a big piece, I see you. Okay, I see you. And one big thing too, the community hub that we're building in Mississauga, it allows us to generate revenue. These are not things that we're just doing so that we can now have free space and we always have to go after grants to keep it operating. We're building things that are resourced and being able to generate more income. So again, the call out goes to the Black ecosystem to say, how do we come together and leverage our unity to leverage more dollars and generate our own income? And a big piece, Victor, you talk about the investment readiness program a lot, the social finance fund that's coming out. We have to tap into these things. As organizations, we can create social enterprises that get funded, hey, through grants, but you leverage it to create your own income generating activities. These are things that we need to pay more attention to. There's so much money flowing. We can position ourselves and leverage it to actually build our wealth and own more assets.
Ashe, indeed, my brother. And another plug, our colleagues from the Foundation for Black Communities have the investment readiness program model that they've deployed. So we want to, in the spirit of solidarity, make sure we plug all the organizations within the ecosystem. Go ahead, my brother Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. And great, absolute, great point, great point. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, in terms of the model that we're, and thank you for that question and that challenge. I mean, Black Opportunity Fund's entire model is about sustainability and how do we do long term, which is why, you know, the next offering is about an investment vehicle that will generate revenues, and we've had that discussion in terms of our thesis and, you know, ensuring, are we looking to generate as much revenue as possible, and then down the road, once we hit a point, then start looking at social impact? And we've said no, our focus is it's both at the same time, that we have to be generating funding to go into social impact programs right away, while there is a return model. So we have an investment program that we are mapping out. The idea of this endowment model that we and many other organizations talked about, which would be, you know, a sustainable endowment fund. And I mean, what we advocated for was an $800 million endowment fund that over time will continue to, in perpetuity, to fund Black community initiatives and will be driven by community. So, you know, we have an investment by government, and what we're hopeful of is that there will be more investments into this in future budgets. But absolutely, there has to be a focus now that there is plenty or more investment than before. We have to be looking at when that dries up, as I said, when seasons change, and we're already seeing that change happen. Because what happens is when there's violence against our community, often there's spikes. We saw a spike in investment around the summer of the gun, and we've seen spikes around investment, you know, years ago over various other incidents. That usually leads to an investment, but then people lose interest. So we also have a fight for relevance. How do we remain relevant? But how do we ensure that at the end of this, we know how to fish, that we're not just, you know, begging for fish after that? We have to, as Ryan says, we have to build our own systems that we can support each other and that we can invest in each other, that we should be looking at. I mean, I was at the University of Toronto Black Founders Network event as a judge with Tiffany the other day, and you look at all those brilliant people, and what was the most important thing is that we saw them connecting with each other to look at, well, I got something over here that can help advance your business over there. And that's something we're not thinking, that collective economics, right? It is something we're not thinking about. You have all of these organizations, as you said, who've received funding. Are all of them pooling together to say, you know, everybody needs computer programs, everybody is buying, you know, various things. Are they pooling together to buy in bulk? Is that happening? And it's not. So how do we encourage that? All of the Black community organizations, forget the ecosystem, are we working together as a collective in terms of our buying power? Are we coming together on that and looking for efficiencies and effectiveness?
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much for all those insights, Brother Craig. We really appreciate your leadership, and definitely we have to applaud our brother Afosa from the Black Founders Network. Thank you for that plug as well. Indeed. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Yes, well, at FACE, I think sustainability planning actually started day 2 in terms of that, because once you start off with what is really seed money from the government, if you're thinking of building an institution and not a program, you have to think about sustainability. So revenue models, revenue sharing models with any institution that we partner with is a huge key as we build out vehicles that we will also become one of the national organizations that has built for the Black community a real sustainability plan, where anything that comes from government ends up being what we are due because we are citizens and we are taxpayers, but that we are never completely dependent on this initial investment by government. I think we're in a great position to ensure that there's a continuity in that regard, but we can't rely on that. The last thing I think that is important is also how we use data. How do we become a hub and build a model that can then be replicated in different parts of the world in terms of Black communities engaging with their governments and with their institutions? So I think FACE sees itself playing that role in our sustainability model. It's what we built and how it becomes a replication in different regions, in different parts of the world. So all of that is a revenue generating strategy, but more than that, it collects, it allows for us to connect the diaspora. So when Doug mentioned how we often look and get inspiration from African Americans, they actually can learn a lot from what we've done. To have a federal government invest money to allow a Black community to build its own infrastructure to lend to its community and support ecosystem organizations around capacity building. And what we're talking about tonight is something that can be replicated and can be guided in different markets. And then that is really how you develop different sustainability strategies in that regard. So we'll keep everybody posted on how FACE is going forward, but the idea is to become sustainable in terms of our operations as they stand and as they grow by 2025.
Indeed, and FACE has become part of our international best practice and a new part of our story internationally. So we give thanks for your leadership, Tiffany. Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. I just want to put my focus back on the entrepreneur a little bit, particularly around what Al mentioned in regards to financial well-being. We know running a business is very challenging, but what we've seen on a day-to-day is that entrepreneurs in general don't have savings. And when we look even closer at Black entrepreneurs, those numbers are quite low. And Ryan talked about almost like assets and ownership on that individual level is also very important. Many entrepreneurs, and now we put Black entrepreneurs when it comes to home ownership, which is a big asset piece for them in terms of moving the dial into getting more financing, is often not there. So when we think about financial literacy, we've got to ensure that it is part of the asset building piece. And what are some of the sort of flexible financial tools or instruments we can put in place to help? I know within our own program during COVID, I was able to see how challenging it was for entrepreneurs, and particularly Black entrepreneurs, because they weren't getting funding through the CBCC programs. Many of them faced bankruptcy, for a long time. They didn't have not even a day's savings put aside. And it was for that reason that, we implemented like a micro savings on our microloan, where we took 1% of their payment and we put it into a savings and roll it over until the loan is paid out. So simple instruments like that can help entrepreneurs. We need to think about how we scale that up, because many of them, we were taught to hide from the government so they don't show the true cash flow of what they have. If you don't show your true cash flow when it's time to think about how do I get a mortgage, now you don't have the figures to go with that. And so we get decline. So I think those are a lot of issues that we need to address in our own community if we want to get entrepreneurs, to the place where they need in order to grow, and also to have that sort of financial resilience and build healthy communities.
Indeed. Thank you so much for those insights, Susan, as always. We appreciate your leadership. Go ahead, Mona Lisa.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Lots of amazing things have already been said. On my side, I just wanted to maybe plug very quickly. One thing that we did at Futurepreneur in creating this program is that we added a follow-on financing component. And normally Futurepreneur, it's a Futurepreneur loan, sorry, is a one-time opportunity since you only fund startups. But for this program, we wanted to have a lasting impact on the Black community so that not only are we able to help young Black entrepreneurs launch their business, but we're able to help them scale after 2 years. So after 2 years, you can come back to us and ask for additional loan financing. And we're actually getting closer and closer to the first 2 years. So as of March, the first entrepreneurs that received funding will be able to come back to us. And we're actually trying to create even more programming to help the entrepreneurs get to, let's say, loan A to loan B, which will mean that they have scaled. And we actually have an opening, I'm putting it out there, a job opening for a program specialist on our team to help us create this program and help have a lasting impact.
Thank you so much, Mona Lisa. We appreciate your leadership as always and all those insights. So with that being said, we are at that time. And we appreciate your perseverance, your resilience, and the leadership it took to come together collectively as a community to have this real talk. We greatly appreciate the organizers and leadership of this gathering and convening. And at this moment, I'd love for all the panelists to share any closing thoughts, warm sentiments, or calls to action for the community of leadership or leaders that are here today. So I'm gonna select. I'll go to Tiffany first. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, because I have to go put my kids to bed. Okay. me and Ryan got a scoop. Okay.
Exactly.
So, exactly. I want to really say that I'm a believer in community building. I've pretty much committed my whole adult life to working exclusively for the Black community. I think that we are definitely in a position of looking at the glass half full. There is a lot of work that we have to do, but we have to be not only hopeful, because that is what the future demands for us to be, but we also have to be patient. Let's lock arms. Let's figure out how we're going to solve. We know the problems. We know them all too well intimately. Now it's the time to build the solutions and be lucid and also flexible enough to be able to bring in the things that will make us prosperous. So I am hopeful for prosperity for our community. Thank you so much, guys. I gotta go. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Ryan, go ahead, my brother.
Again, as frustrated as I might sound, I am so optimistic about the future for the Black community. What you talked about, Brother Victor, that our ancestors and our elders didn't imagine the types of money that's going to be flowing to the Black community. Of course, we do know that there should be more, but with what we have this ability to really leverage it and start building for that generational wealth. And when I said, if we're not talking about building wealth or ownership of assets, we're really wasting our time. And the chat talked so much about ecosystem building. We are all on here. I feel like this is a great foundation for us to lean in and build on how we communicate and keep this conversation going. Hey, Al, I love you. And again, I didn't want to call out TD, but these are the platforms where we should be able to talk the talk and be like, hey, this is what I'm getting calls from entrepreneurs about. We want to support them as best we can. If we can't talk to each other as an ecosystem and build from it and use it to strategize, that's why I love the data that Tiffany was sharing, because now we can use these rich data points to make better decisions and not just wing it. I'll admit, 5 years ago, ACBN started, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm seeing a gap. Okay, we're gonna start something, and you're really just doing your best. 5 years later, now that we have better info, we must use that info to make sure the next 5 years is more impactful. We have entrepreneurs on the right track. We're seeing more expansion, and we're seeing great companies expand across Canada into the US and internationally so that they can visit Brother Victor in Ghana and be like, hey, I want to open up shop here. We have to build a lot of this wealth building in our community, and we have the tools to do it, but we can't wing it. We have to strategize. And that's where Doug was talking about the Black Empowerment Manifesto. using the Black labor market assessment to really ground ourselves and use it as a blueprint so that we get this done and our children can look back at us and say, yo, you built something great as you built on top of what our ancestors and elders did. If my daughter and my son look at me and like, Dad, what did you do with all that you got? I would have failed as a perceived leader in this Black community, and that will not sit well with me. So I'm just glad to be in this company. Again, I love y'all, and I'm glad to build with you. Let's keep it going.
Thank you so much, Ryan. We appreciate your leadership. We're going to go to Susan and then to Al. Go ahead,
Great.
Susan.
So, I mean, I think the financial support that's been created in the past few years, and even as recent as what we're seeing launch with BOF and TD, is great strides forward. As someone from another financial institution and who's been in the space for a long time, I don't look at this as competition, but collaboration, particularly for our community. There's spaces where we can have competition, but this is about coming together and supporting the community that's been underserved for so long. So I am really like ecstatic about this. You know, I also think that we have to have patience. This is still so young. We're talking a couple of years. So we've got to give ourselves time to see how this impact develop. And lastly, I would say that, you know, we need others to know that investing in Black business is good for the economy. This is not charity work. We don't need white saviors. This is about long-term generational wealth, building sustainability and healthy communities for all of Canada.
Thank you so much for those insights. We really appreciate your leadership, Susan. Thank you once again. Go ahead, Al.
Apologies, my camera was off because I'm in the office and they turned the lights off on me. I had to call to turn it back on. Sustainability. We turn lights off at 8, only spotlight. Anyways, Ryan, not a problem. You know what? As we build together, we strengthen together. The hardest part of my job every day is to say no sometimes, and it's hard, but as we evolve, we strengthen partnerships. So not at all. This is a forum to have these conversations. We have a lot of great partners across the country, but we've always looked to evolve. So your comments back to me is awesome and welcome. Thank you. You know, I would say there's so much great conversation here tonight, and in fear of repeating everything, and I won't, you know, Suzanne just really wrap it up perfectly, exactly what needs to be true from financial institution. And we're always there as a supporter, and not just now, but long time before. There's one premise I remember one of my mentors told me. And my mentor told me that there's a sense of dual accountability and responsibility. Okay, and it's a responsibility of institutions like the TD Bank, etc., to do their part in this. And you have to keep us accountable, and we are going to do that. But I think far too long, we as a community also, we have a responsibility to do exactly what we're doing here tonight. And that is what it's all about. I remember when we just started talking about this, the head of our business banking said to us, the biggest value we'll get from that community in strengthening partnerships is to get deep insights that you would never see on a credit application. But what you're going to get from partners who understand the cultural nuances. And I made a joke with him and said, okay, we're going to reimagine the 5 C's of credit. I'm going to add 1 C for cultural impact on it. And he laughed. But he said, that is what you are going to get. You're going to bring that forward to us. And you know why that's going to be important? Is it coming from trusted partners that you've strengthened partnership over time with? I'm going to bring that forward. I'm going to champion that and train up the entire system. So we're doing our part here tonight. Continue to do that, because as I said before, my job is not to say no in this case, is not yet. Not yet, but go to BOF. Not yet, go to X, Y, and Z. Get capacity building, get microfunding, graduate, come back to us. When you are ready, and even if it's in the perfect box, that's why we didn't want to put a box to box people out. We have a dedicated team who will take it forward and champion that. That is what we want to do. So do what you do, dual accountability and responsibility. and we're doing our part as a community in building an ecosystem of support. It is invaluable.
Shay, thank you so much for your leadership, Al. We appreciate you. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, happy to be here with this esteemed panel and talk to everybody today. Thank you so much for putting this together, to the organizers. Thank you for all the participants who've been in the chat sharing information. Just to sum it up and share a message, it's a message that, I mentioned earlier, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And being able to sit here with so many different people doing the same thing in different ways to support one goal, to me, that sums it up. And we need to continue encouraging it, participating in it, and really taking the lessons that we all learn and sharing them. I feel like that is going to be it. Knowledge is something that cannot be taken away. Like, we could give people money, but money may run out. You may spend it, but knowledge is something that will forever be with them. And teaching people how to utilize that knowledge is key and critical to the mission that we're trying to accomplish. So let's continue gathering and sharing knowledge in as many forums as possible. Thank you, everybody.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Kevin. Go ahead, Mona Lisa.
I'm going to be extremely brief. I love the conversation that we were able to have tonight. I hope that we continue having these conversations and that we continue working together. We're all working towards the same goal. This is exciting times. So very happy.
Indeed. Thank you for your leadership as always, fam. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, one, it's been a pleasure to listen to everyone and hear the data points, both from Face and both from Ryan and Susan Henry. Thank you for encapsulating, from a lending perspective, many of the things that we needed to hear. And Al, thank you for your wisdom and advice and breaking things down. Canada, and this is coming from me, my objective view, Canada's the North Star of the Black business renaissance. There's renaissance happening throughout the African diaspora. And I know that we all talk about Atlanta as being one of the meccas, of Black culture and Black business. I think Canada's positioning itself as the North Star of that renaissance. And it's a great feeling to be supporting that renaissance. To see where we were 3 years ago, to see where we were 15 years ago, to see where we were 20 years ago, and where we are today. So this is a great place to be, and a great time to have this conversation, and a great time to be a part of the work. The Canadian Black Chamber is proud to be a part of this, and we are proud of the partnerships that we have with Black Opportunity Fund and many of you in this room. And we look forward to expanding that.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Doug, for your leadership as always. We'll hand it off, last but not least, our colleague Craig. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, brother Victor. And thank you to all of you for coming together on in this and sharing this space. It is an absolute privilege. And thank you for all the tremendous work that you're doing and agreeing to come into this space. I think one of the key things that we try to be is that orchestrator to bring everybody together, because it is important for the community to see us working together, because we have to change these narratives. And there's a lot of negative narratives that we've heard so much that we repeat them. And we always hear, well, Black people don't work together. Black people can't do this. Other races do this. Black people don't get along. All of these kind of things that we hear over and over. We have to change the narrative. Here are all of these organizations together. Here are two of the big banks sitting here working together. Black Opportunity Fund has partnerships with 4 of the 6 major banks, another double and number 5 coming just now. And they all work together because we all have the same goal. I was at a Black History Month presentation in February, talking about this and these negative narratives that we repeat. And at the end, somebody said that, well, what about Black on Black violence? What about Black people we don't work together. And I'm like, Russia just invaded Ukraine yesterday. Nobody's calling that white on white violence, right? We've had 2 world wars. Nobody says, you know, the US Civil War is white on white violence, but we have these narratives that we take into account, and it is because we have been conditioned that way. And us being together talking and showing, and I thought this was, you know, I applaud TD and Al, and I applaud Kevon and CIBC, because when I said this is going to be real talk, we're taking questions from the floor. That's how we do it in Black Opportunity Funds Roundtable. And you know, give them credit, because nobody would think that a bank would say, yeah, all right, we come and we'll take the questions, right? And not just that, but the people here, I wanted to make sure that people see that the people behind these programs look like us. They're from our community. So they're understanding when they're building these programs. And that is something that is tremendously different 10 years ago or so on. You know, Victor, you name checked, you know, a bunch of my heroes there. You know, I walked on the street with Dudley and Dudley Laws, Charlie Roach, Lennox Farrell, Sharona Hall, Akua Bedra, march on the street, and we plan strategy. And you're absolutely right. They couldn't have imagined this. So we're in this moment, and let us take advantage of it. Let us make sure that we're in this together, and that we come out of it together, and we come out of it better. When, you know, when the seasons change, let us make sure that we've put aside for plenty, and we've made sure that we've planted seeds that will continue to grow. So if there's anything I could say to you all, you know, just continue to grow beautifully where you are all planted. I am in awe of all of you for your commitment, for the tremendous work that you're doing. And, you know, it's always an honor for me to share space. And, you know, Victor, I thank you so much for responding to our call to facilitate this, as you always do, in such a gentle and graceful way. Thank you so much for that. And again, thank you to all of you for the tremendous work that you all continue to do.
We give thanks. In the words of our brother Kevin, fast alone or far together. And in the words of the chats, Ubuntu, I am because we are. Let's continue to build, fam. Warm regards. Bye-bye.
Bless you.